All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all doing okay here this crazy weekend in the world. But thanks so much for stopping by here tonight. So like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I give priority answering that as a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's a link in the description. And also, I want to mention before we get started that I will not be doing a live stream on Wednesday of this week, but I will be back next Sunday for another one. But anyway, I see we have Kevin, Vishal, Theodore, and Lanswath, and Danny, and Tony, and Dave, and Kyle, and Mr. 705, and Lantern Tales all stopping by. So thanks so much for stopping by, everyone. And Kevin says, good evening. This Tuesday is my birthday. Well, happy early birthday. I hope it's a great one for you and hope you have a good year here. And Michelle says, hello, my spots are a Rolls-Royce Spectre. Nice. And an early 90s Dodge Caravan. Total opposite end of the spectrum. Yeah, absolutely. But that's pretty awesome. And that's cool you saw a Spectre. I don't think I've actually seen one of those yet on the road, honestly. There's not a Rolls dealer around here, so I don't usually see them in my area. But even if my California travels, excuse me, so far this year, I haven't seen any, I don't think, surprisingly. I've seen a couple other Rolls, but none of the Spectres. And then Theodore says, I think the car craze is going away because there are no magazines or toys like they used to be. Well, as someone who regularly goes down the Target toy aisle these days, having a kid, I mean, there's a whole aisle of car stuff still. I mean, maybe you could argue that, in the 90s at Toys R Us and stuff, there was multiple aisles probably of car, toys and stuff. But I don't know, to me, at least from my perception, that seems to be alive and well. The magazines are definitely dying. I mean, there's no question about it. A lot of these magazines have folded, and even all the fun magazines I used to enjoy as a teenager, like, Super Street, what's the other one? Import Tuner or something, like all those, like those kinds of magazines, those real small ones, I think got all folded up. And a lot of that stuff has gone away. And I mean, even the big ones like Motor Trend struggling, all these other ones, everyone's laying off people. A lot of it though is, private equity's coming in and killing a bunch of them and stuff too. But there's I mean, it's not great for magazines, and everyone's trying to find their own ways to survive, just like I am. Road and Track, they went only subscription, and they're kind of making it more of a higher end thing for theirs. I hope that's one of these trends I hear every once in a while, like, oh, like it's the popularity is coming back, kind of like newspapers, people kind of like having something they can hold on to. I hope that does swing around, but I don't know how many of these are going to make it to see that potential light at the end of the tunnel. We'll see. But yeah, it's a shame. I think, people are still into cars. It's just, they're online, talking about them and consuming content that way instead. And, it's one of those things, if you can get it for free, why would you pay for it? And for a lot of people, the actual automotive journalists, and the written pieces that they, spend a lot of time on and stuff like that, people don't really care that much. They'd rather watch someone, talk on TikTok for 60 seconds about something and point out every cup holder in the car and call it a day. It's just, and people just, viewership changes. People just have preferences that change, and it's just evolving, and we're all trying to evolve as best we can with it. But a lot of those new things like the TikTok stuff and stuff, it's, it doesn't pay very well. So, trying to make a career out of these things gets to be harder, and so you have less experts in these fields as a result. So it's a whole big ball of wax I could get into more, but I won't. I'll try to keep the rants to a reasonable length, I guess. Tonight is all I can promise. But Kyle, thank you so much for the first super chat of the night here, and a very generous one at that. He says, Matt, happy the channel seems to be doing better. I like the My Week With title better versus the review. It seems more personal. Thank you for that feedback, Kyle. And the channel is doing a little bit better. It's still not where it needs to be. But I'm seeing some signs of life and positive direction that I hope I can keep going. Because that's the thing with YouTube, is it's, one month you're up and things are okay, and the next month, you get a rug pull and you're back in the trenches. So we'll see how it goes, is I think the bottom line for me. But I appreciate, if if you saw the member post here, that I did today for those of you who are members, me, contemplating scrapping the regular reviews and just having everything be a my week with thing. Because when I analyzed, the channel and kind of did a channel audit recently, the my week with consistently do better than the reviews. I mean, there are still some reviews that do outperform a my week with or something, but like, especially whenever you have the direct contrast of like me on the launch event for a car and then me getting it 3-6 months later as a press car, and just saying, yeah, I already reviewed it, but here's, the fuel economy I got this week and my other updated thoughts. Like that always outperforms the big labor intensive, travel intensive, huge chunk review. And again, could kind of go back to that TikTok mentality of, and I think, sorry, allow me one more minute to kind of indulge in this and then I will move on. But I think that, I've just been really, like I've said in the past, any options on the table. And so I think, watching other reviews, I've been trying to spend a little bit of time to start watching successful channels that have the views that I wish I had and being like, okay, this is what people want because the views don't lie. And, what people want is 5 minutes of drive impressions. That's what Doug does. That's what Joe Rady does. Like, and they do, a good job with their videos. Clearly, that's why they have, millions of subscribers and a ton of views. But like, they like 5 minutes of driving impressions is enough for a large amount of people. And, me trying to dissect how a car handles and explain to you what the torque vector all-wheel drive does and, going through all these little details. I always just I like nerding out on that stuff. And I know that especially, the 49 people currently in here, 52 now, it just jumped up, who, probably like that as well, but when I look at my analytics, 20% of my overall views every month come from subscribers. I can't appeal to just the 20%. I wish I could, but like I got to appeal to that 80% masses casual viewer. And what they want is 5 minutes of drive impressions with just me being like, wee, that was fun, the end. And that's it. Like, that's literally all people want because that, that's clearly been proven out by all these other channels. And I know I'm not going to be those other channels, but like, that's the kind of stuff people want to see on YouTube, it seems. They'll sit through a 10-minute interior portion, 5 minutes of walking around the outside because all these other people do that too. But like, they don't want to have a deep dive on the drive, apparently. So that's kind of why, a little bit of is, going to my week with things, but also just really cutting back and stopping myself and being like, I care about this. Maybe 50 of you also care about this torque vectoring rear diff or whatever, but like, I need to make this more mass consumption and dumb it down for lack of a better term. And so I think that's kind of, the direction that, I think I need to go with the videos, which I know will be disappointing for some people, and we'll experiment. YouTube is just a giant experiment for me these days, every day, try new things, try these rants, try this, try that. And some things like the rants do seem like they are, if nothing else, another nice little channel booster that's easy to do and quick to do. But, again, just realizing like what I want to do might not be what's best for the channel, and and what even you guys might want to see, it might not be best for the channel, unfortunately. And I just, I need to make it more mass consumption. So I think I'm going to try and experiment with that. If that doesn't work out, then I'm happy to do 30-minute deep dives on a car still. But yeah, I appreciate your feedback though. And I think that the my week with thing, it is more personal. You're right. And I think, it instantly gives the video more credibility too, because anyone can label anything a review, but there's all these things that are reviews, and maybe they're reviewing the interior or they're reviewing the outside or they're at a car show reviewing something, but like, it's not immediately clear that it's like, wow, I should watch this, versus a week with thing. It's like, wow, this person lived with this for a week, instantly more authority on that car versus a review that, I could have been driving it for half an hour. I could have been driving it for, a day. You have no idea based on that title, typically. So I think the week with thing is definitely the way to go. And even if I just rebrand the reviews as my week with, maybe that could be another experiment to try, is like same exact 30-minute review, same deep dive and everything, but just call it a my week with and see, if that accomplishes the same thing. I don't know, so these are all the things I'll be experimenting with. And so anyway, I won't go into the technical YouTube stuff any longer unless you guys want to hear more about that. But while we're on the topic, and then we'll move on, I'll just see if there's any follow-up questions and comments here about it. See, Mr. 705 says he likes the My Week With style as well. Thank you for that feedback. Yeah, so I think that's most, yeah. Patricia says, best YouTuber ever, no matter what. Well, thank you for that, Patricia. I really appreciate the kind words and the support always. Let me see. Mr. 705 says, people trust your opinion. So if you can summarize your thoughts into something quick and efficient, I think you'll have more success. Yeah. And I mean, as you've witnessed in these lives, I am very verbose and, it can get long. So I think that's something, I really like every minute I need like a shock collar on myself. It's like concise, be concise, just get it off, Matt. So yeah, I think that's something I'm going to work on for sure. Kyle says 100% yes. People who drive a car with the dealer sticker still on the window calling it a review is a little iffy. I agree. So I'm hoping that, I'm headed in the right direction, and I really appreciate the feedback from you guys, because that really helps inform, the direction I go with a lot of this stuff as well. And a lot of this, I mean, actually, like the channel audit that kind of brought this to my attention, because some of these things I don't always register on my own, but that was actually an AI thing. I had an AI audit thing that like mass consumed, the channel in like, 20 seconds and was like, okay, like, here's what you're doing, here's what everyone else is doing, here's what you can improve, here's when, and like that's what was like, your week with things are what you totally should be doing instead of the regular reviews. And I'm like, damn, I think it might actually be right. So we'll see what happens. But there's a few cases where AI can actually be beneficial. But anyway, Avish Al says, I think calling all our reviews My Week With will make people want to watch more. Just review makes it seem too formal. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that totally makes sense. So maybe that's what I try first, instead of doing a complete jump to, cutting out every, interior segment and but I know regardless, I need to be more concise. And I think, the one thing that I also need to keep in mind is a lot of you guys are around the same age as me and in the same stage of life that I am in. And, not like all of our lives are the same, but if a lot of you are like me, you might have a family, or you might just be really busy with your career, you might whatever. And like, I think all of us, we were happy to watch a half an hour video, maybe, 10 years ago, or when we were in college or something, but like, we don't have the time for that anymore. I mean, and there's plenty of other doom scrolling and other things that take up our time too. But like, I think that a lot of us just, we got kids, we got all these other things, responsibilities we need to worry about. We don't have time to watch as much stuff. And this is, I think, part of why TikTok has, gotten so popular too. But so I think that, I saw that in my own life of like, I don't have time to watch all these channels I used to watch. But instead of changing my channel to accommodate that, I just kept going and assuming that people were still going to watch a 30-minute video. And it's like, that's just probably not the case. And that's, totally understandable, because I'm in that same place in life too. So I think that hopefully will, again, kind of guide things back to a better spot. It's just, for me, trying to do a really good video, because I always have so many things I want to include, and trying to condense that is really hard for me. But that's just, also part of the thing I need to head towards for sure. And Xavier, thank you so much for a very generous super chat as well. He says, I like whatever style you do. You seem so genuine and like you really enjoy cars. Car enthusiast that's not a douche. I appreciate that, Xavier, and thank you so much for the support. And I appreciate that. And that is, so nice to know that I have so many people that do have my back, regardless of, what I do as far as the style of the reviews and stuff. And that definitely helps. And it's so frustrating the way the algorithm has gone, because I really wish I could just make stuff for subscribers and they would see it. But like, it's just unfortunately not that straightforward anymore. And I don't know if you guys have seen, I don't know if this is just on my sub feed currently or not, but like, if you go on the sub feed for just YouTube in general on desktop, at least if you have a laptop or a computer, you can like on there, like, now it's like a weird grid. It used to just be like a list of videos that were in chronological order. It was like one of the last places on YouTube where you could just like get all the stuff that you subscribe to in a chronological order. And now that's even being screwed up with the algorithm, because now there's like a row of like the 3 most recently uploaded videos. Then there's a like suggested section of still only stuff from your subscriptions, but the subscriptions that YouTube things you want to watch. And then you can either expand that or minimize that. And then you have to scroll down further to get to the chronological kind of stuff again. But it's all mixed up and jumbled, and it's super confusing now. So it's like, great. Now, even if you are someone who uses the sub feed, I have to hope that the algorithm is going to either, put me in that big chunk in the middle, or it's going to, or you're going to just happen to log on, and maybe one of the top 3 videos. But like, it's just like they keep making it harder and harder and making the subscriber count more and more meaningless. And, aside from, getting notifications and turning that bell on or whatever, like that's like the only way now to, actually know what people you're subscribed to are doing. And it's just like, I don't know. YouTube has way too much confidence in their own algorithm. But anyway, let me see a couple more quick follow-ups on this, and then we'll move on to, again, talking about cars again. And first off, Nintendo, Atari Killer, thank you so much for being a member for 18 months now. I really appreciate that. He says, finally hit the low 50s outside. It was sunny, so I took the bike out and checked out a brand new cafe in my neighborhood. That's awesome. That sounds like a great way to spend a weekend day, and hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, we're starting to get some warm weather around here too. It seems like tomorrow could be like actually the last day in the 40s, and then we're going to be in the 50s and like mid to high 60s here, going for the foreseeable future here, at least, which is really nice. So I'm excited for that, and I hope you guys enjoy that too. It'll start to be car weather again. You can get your toys out and start having some fun out there on the roads again. But let me see before we move on from the channel talk, and then we'll leave it. So Theodore says, FYI, me and my wife love your rants. It's like talking at a dinner table with your best friend, and you're talking about cars is the best. Well, I'm glad you enjoy it, and yeah, thanks so much, Theodore, for watching them. And yeah, I think the rants, I'm very thankful for how those have gone, and I hope that they grow, because that's the other thing with YouTube is a lot of these things just don't grow for me. It could be a new thing, and maybe it does well, and that's good enough, I suppose. But like the idea of like actually having stuff improve and continue to grow is really the thing that's been kind of elusive to me for a while now. So I'm hoping I can actually build momentum and actually grow something instead of just treading water. And Darnell says, I do like how Doug does the Doug score. Maybe you can do the math stat. I appreciate that's a fun suggestion, the math stat, and nudge people which car is the best choice at times. Yeah, I mean, so the reason why I don't do the scores, I understand the appeal of them, and I know that a lot of people, I mean, I'm kind of like this as well with like ranking and lists. I'm a list maker, and so the idea of, okay, well, like I'm getting a definitive list from someone, like this is better than this, and I can see the appeal there. For me, it just never seemed helpful, because it's only a list of the things that I like, and no one is a clone of me. And I know that what I like has a little bit of value with some people, but again, especially if we're talking about the 80% who don't even bother subscribing to me, they don't care if I like a car or something. Like, I think to me, it's important to recognize that there isn't a one size fits all, and this might be the best thing ever. GR Corolla, for example, drink, prime example there. Cheers. But like, I think it's the greatest thing ever. I absolutely adore the GR Corolla. But all of you don't drive GR Corollas, and I don't blame you. Like, everyone likes something different, and that's just one example that I think saying something is the best, even if you just say like this is the best crossover SUV or the best luxury sedan or whatever the case is, like it's just immediately going to be wrong, and it's bad advice to tell people this is the best thing ever, because it might be to you, but it is not to other people. And I guess I don't have the ego to think that what I think is best is the same thing you guys should think is the best. Like, that's to me, like that's a mental leap I certainly can't get to. So that's kind of part of why I think the scores are unhelpful. And this is why I do, once a year, I will say at the end of the year, I do my top 10 of here's the top 10 things that I had the most fun in this year. Heavy caveat, heavy disclaimer that it's like only what I like. This is not helpful, but if you're curious what my favorite ones were this year, here you go, once a year, and that's it. But like, even that's a little self-indulgent in my mind. So like that, but that's like as far as I'll go with the list things and the scores. Because there's no, unless you're doing like actual like sound testing, or you're doing these very objective tests where you just have numbers of data you're collecting, you're ranking 0 to 60 times. If you're ranking cars in those kinds of instances, sure, obviously that it has value. But whenever it's just like, oh, well, this is what I like because, I was in a good mood that day or whatever, that's, to me, that's not as helpful. And that's one of my other critiques with the Doug stuff, but he's not the only one who does it. But, let me see. All right. Raphael, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, don't get me wrong, I love my Camry TRD, but I got to drive a Corvette Z06. Oh boy, sorry, but oh damn. Oh yeah. Well, I'm glad you got to experience one. That's awesome. And yeah, Z06 is really magical. It's, it sounds like the one that Jack from Savage East, he had some transmission issues. So I'm a little nervous about that motor long term, nervous about the whole powertrain in general long term. So, it's one that is really fun to drive, and maybe even, keep as long as you have it under warranty. Outside of a warranty period, I'd be nervous about that car, but you're right. It is so magical. I mean, you can see it on my face the entire time during my review of the Z06. Just what a car. That was definitely one of the most fun. That one I didn't even have for a full week. I think I had that 3 or 4 days, but definitely one of the most fun press cars I've ever had. Might even actually be the most fun. It's up there, if not. It's definitely in the top 3 if it's not, because it was more fun than the NSX, which is another like high watermark. Okay, I'll take that back. Vantage was more fun to me, but just barely. So I'd say, yeah, Vantage was probably the most enjoyment I've ever had, behind the wheel. Part of that is a little bit subjective because I love Aston, but like it's just so I don't want to re-review the Vantage. Watch the review if you haven't already. But Vantage is definitely, I think, number 1, but I think Z06 is probably number 2 for me. Yeah, it's so good. And let me see. And thank you again, Raphael, for the super chat. And Two Chang's in the house. Thanks for stopping by too. And he's been a member for 44 months as well. Thank you so much. One of the OG members here. I really appreciate that too. Hope you're doing well. He says, oh boy, he's back with the basement jokes. Did Chris Fix reach out? Please don't put me back in the dark hole. Yeah, well, I know, too, you were complaining about the cat litter in the basement there. And I'm sorry, the cats just, that's where they need to be for the litter boxes. But anyway, yeah, we'll try and upgrade the food down there for you too. But anyway, thanks so much for stopping by and for your support. And I hope you're doing well too. I think you picked up a Tacoma, not too long ago here last year. So I hope that's treating you well. Hope everything's going well for you. But thanks so much for stopping by. And let me see. Nico, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, what kind of jeans does a ghost hunter wear? I don't know. So I'm not going to try and guess at that joke because I have no idea. But I'm looking forward to if anyone has a guess or Nico's answer. Oh, just a pair of normal jeans. I like it. That's a good one. And thank you so much, Nico, for stopping by too, for the super chat. And I see Danny's excited. The two's in the house too. And let me see if there's any other follow-ups here on the channel before we move on to the car stuff. So I don't think so. I think we're good. All right. So, yeah, Nico says deep breaths, definitely. And all right, so let me see where we were with the other car chat here. So Michelle says he watched the GTI video and the base Volkswagens don't feel penalty box. My Passat is the S, and the only blank buttons are the heated seats, voice control on the steering wheel, and the park assist buttons by the shifter. Nice, yeah. And I mean, and now it's like even that stuff, you don't even have blank buttons for. So yeah, I agree. And I think that's an overall car trend is base models are really good. I think Volkswagen, though, they do one of the best jobs with base models. Out of all the brands out there, I think Volkswagen is one of the least, brands where you need to like move up to a higher trim because they do just pack the base ones with so many great features in many cases. And actually another, like right now I have a 2026 Jetta Sport, a base regular Jetta. And again, I won't spoil the review. You'll see that here soon. But it's great though. Like, and I'm there's a couple little things I think could be improved, but like for 26,000 bucks, before discounts, it's a really nice little car, honestly. And but the more that I experience other base trims, I think that's the case. Even like a few years back, I did a walk around because when we did the Lexus RX media drive when that launched for this generation, they actually brought a base one, and I was like wanting to kiss the feet of whoever like decided to like actually show off the base trim at a media event, because that is extremely rare. But I did a walk around of it. And if you search, here's what a base RX looks like on the channel. I did a walk around video, but it's like, there's some nice things, but it's like, do you actually need to spend way more? Like, part of the struggle is the dealers don't stock a lot of base ones, but I really wish they did more. And I guess you can always order some of this stuff, not with Toyota and Lexus, but with other brands, and say, I want to order a base model, or that's what I want, go dealer trade it or whatever. But like, yeah, base models are great these days, especially with the affordability crisis and stuff going on. Like, if you can live without some of these features, you are completely fine in a base model these days. Even safety stuff, like most base model cars still come with blind spot monitoring now. So even, some of these things that were really nice to have, adaptive cruise, all that stuff, like you get all that stuff now in most cars as standard. So very little reason to go up to the high trims. And that could also be part of why a lot of the reviews don't do well, because it's like, a lot of people probably see that too. They're like, okay, well, all the reviews are for the top of the line one. I don't need all that stuff, and there's very few of these. And, when I do post a base video like this GTI and probably this Jetta even, they'll do really well because it's more relatable. It's, what people need. And that's, all they want to see, and let me see. Lancelot, thank you so much for a very generous super chat tonight as well. He says, I'm loving the Dark Knight videos you've been uploading. Yeah, thanks for watching those. Yeah, so I did just the one here on YouTube, and like YouTube shorts always do terrible for me. So I did the one, it went nowhere. I was like, all right, I will give up on doing them on YouTube. But yes, if you follow me on Facebook or you follow me on Instagram, I've been posting those there. The reason is Facebook does these Facebook bonus things. And I was finally like, you know what? I have this giant back catalog. I'm going to use it. And I think a lot of these it's a gold mine. I've got over 3,000 videos that, now with, these little AI clipping services and stuff, I can, or even some of these Batman ones, it's super easy. I just put it into a vertical format. It takes me, 5 minutes to edit and throw it up. But Facebook is starting to pay better for Reels, and they're doing these bonuses where, like, I'll tell you guys, they're paying me $500 to do 20 Facebook Reels in like over 20 days or something. And I'm like, sure, like pay me $500 to like upload all my old stuff that's making, $3, a week, or probably not even that much, making $1 a week on YouTube, just languishing there because no one was watching them anymore. Like, sure, I'll do that. I gotta, because again, it's not like I even need to do new stuff. I can just repurpose all this old stuff, and I'll do some new stuff eventually on the Facebook if it continues to pay that well every month or whatever. But like, it was like they keep being like, do these bonus things on Facebook. I'm like, all right, well, I'm not gonna say no to that. It takes a little bit of time to schedule them and upload them, all that stuff, but like it's worth it for the money right now. We'll see. Facebook likes to rug pull too, so I'm not counting on that actually being viable for anything long term. But for now, I'm taking it. But yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying them, and hopefully it doesn't annoy too many of you if you do follow me on Facebook. That won't last forever. I'm just getting them out there to get them into the Facebook algorithm, and then I'll go back to doing actual car stuff. So, don't be annoyed and unfollow if you're on Facebook and you're seeing a bunch of Batman stuff from 14 years ago or whatever. It's just temporary. So anyway, thank you also so much for super chat here. He says, oh, we're telling jokes. Okay, how can you tell an EV is a Subaru? It still blows head gaskets. Absolutely, they'll find a way. I'm sure. Yeah, once you get to the magical 100,000 mile mark on the Subaru EVs, they'll just probably give you an error message. It just says blown head gasket on the screen, and it'll just refuse to turn on, even though it's all electric. Totally can see that happening. And thanks too for the joke here. And Raphael, thank you so much for a super chat here as well. He says bike paid off, car paid off, house being paid off in July, and then time to build the collection, starting with a GR86 and a Hayabusa. That's awesome. Well, congrats on those achievements. That's huge, and that's very impressive. So congrats on that. Sounds like you're making the right moves there in life, and you're gonna start enjoying that even more with some fun toys here, and that's awesome. And I think, especially some of these cars, G86, they do hold their value pretty well, but if there's other things you add down the road, I mean, a lot of those again can actually be good investments too, depending on what you get. And that's awesome. I'm excited for you to get a G86. Let us know for sure whenever you get there, and send over a picture if you do happen to get it, because I definitely love to keep sharing member car of the weeks, posts for the members here. So thank you so much for the super chat there. And yeah, Michelle says they'll blow battery gaskets. Yeah, I don't know if that's a thing. Maybe it is, but even if it isn't, they'll find a way. Yeah. And let me see here. So and Lance Wath, we're still getting back to the all the welcome messages here. So Lance Wath says good evening, and his spot was a white Focus RS. Nice, that's awesome. I actually saw Focus RS, or no, here's what I saw this week. I saw a regular Focus that had a RS wing on it. And I mean, again, love the one you're with. That's what they have to work with. They want to jazz it up, more power to them. But it was a regular Focus hatchback that had, it was the real RS wing though. I had like the RS embossing, or it was a really good knockoff, one or the other. But like totally stock Focus otherwise, kind of fun. And there's also someone at my local Target that just has a Focus RS, an actual one. And every time I go to that Target, I'm like, yeah, I'm glad they still got it. It's still kicking. That's great. And Michelle says, I'm not surprised by the sound system in the GTI S. Even my car has a pretty awesome sounding stereo for being the standard 6-speaker audio. Even have friends commented how nice it sounds. Nice. Yeah, it's weird because I feel like the Volkswagen upgraded stereos are usually some of the worst as far as branded upgraded stereos goes. So it's kind of this weird disconnect. Like they just do really good bass ones, and then they drop the ball on the upgrade sometimes, because like the Beats stereos they had for a while were just not good in my opinion. Even the Harman Kardon ones, they're not even as good as like the Harman Kardon Subaru stereo, which isn't a high bar, but they're not even that. It just, I don't know, it's kind of weird the way that goes. But I mean, and it's also not all base Volkswagens, because actually I was very curious in the Jetta this week. Again, I'm spoiling my review. I'm a terrible marketer. But like, the Jetta here has not a great stereo for the base stereo. It's pretty flat and hollow. So it's not all of them, but at least in the GTI, they spent the money to do a really good base stereo. Maybe there's just more people that go for those lower trims and it's more important. But I feel like there's a ton of people that buy base Jetta. So I don't know. But yeah, I'm glad the GTI is a good one. And I'm glad your Passat is too. And Danny says, only 17 days until I turn 18. Yay. I drove yesterday and today, and my rare spot was a Ford Focus ZX3 SVT in red. The Bolt is closing in on 79,000 miles. It's awesome. Well, I'm excited for your birthday there, and we'll definitely have to give you a special shout out there whenever the next, I guess it'll be like, 2 lives. Is that a Wednesday, or because it's gonna be like 2.5 weeks or so? But anyway, hope you have a fun birthday. If we don't talk to you before then, but I'm sure we will. And Tony says, hey Matt, I loved the GTI video, considering one of those in about a year or so. My friend loves his 19. Cool spot was an early 90s 01, one of my favorites. Well, that's a rare spot to see one of those out and about. That's cool. He said it was even purple. That's extra impressive. There can't be more than a few dozen in that color. The 01s has got to be rare. So that's awesome. Good spot. GTIs, I definitely have a growing appreciation for them. So, as long as you make peace with the idea that you will have to replace a water pump at some point, and that'll go and maybe screw you at one point, or, come at a not opportune time. But again, with how everything else is just, so many things have reliability issues these days. Like if the only thing you really need to worry about in a GTI for at least a long time is a water pump, these days, like I can live with that. Previously they'd be like, oh no, I'll just, get something else. But like, yeah. And maybe it's just kind of this stage of life. GTI always just never got me that excited, but like, I think it's the right speed now for, mid 30s. Kind of, I don't know. I think maybe GTI is something you kind of got to grow into for some people. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I've seen other people comment similar kinds of things of like, if you're not like you're old, but if you're, older and you're not, someone who wants something crazy and showboaty, GTI kind of is a really nice little, like, okay, you still have your fun, you still have your practicality, and you're not, in something that's, turning heads and stuff. It's just, yeah, I don't know, just something I can kind of vibe with right now. And I'm sure it sounds like a lot of you guys can too. And Danny says he still has the 2 dead front TPMS sensors. Well, hopefully it gets sorted soon. And Tony says, took my son on his first short drive around the cul-de-sac yesterday. He'll be 16 in about 2 weeks. Can't wait to teach him how to drive. That's awesome. That's going to be very exciting and something I'm looking forward to doing with my daughter eventually too. Obviously, she's a lot farther away from that, but I'm excited for you. I hope that'll be fun and not too terrifying. I'm sure if they, if he grew up around cars, then, it's something he's probably familiar with, and I'm sure he'll kind of hit the ground running there with driving skills, but I'm sure he'll be a great teacher too, Tony. And Danny says, I went looking on Cars and Biz to see some crazy car prices. There's a 2002 100 Series Land Cruiser with 344,200 miles on it. Bids are at $6,850. Oh, okay. I thought you were looking like high dollar stuff. That's impressive that it's that cheap, honestly. I thought it'd be more. Maybe it'll come up eventually. But the one other crazy thing, I don't know which auction site it was, but I just saw that a 2004 WRX STI that had like 800 miles on it, like, museum quality, like super nice. But it went for, I think, $102,000. It's like, wow, that's the future, is like that kind of stuff. I mean, they don't have to be, mothballed like that, but like lower mileage, well-kept, nice stock or easily reversible, modded things like that. That's going to be big money, I think, because it's always about, the stuff that was appealing to whatever generation has the money now to be spending and buying collector cars and stuff. And that's the way that's going to be the big money stuff. It'll be interesting to see what the classics end up doing, long term, but absolutely. If you want to buy and hold something and, drive it every once in a while and still enjoy it, but have a really good investment, any of these things from the glory years, the 90s, 2000, early 2000s, I think that's going to be the stuff, especially the more rare stuff. Like, Hellcats are a dime a dozen and stuff. So like that stuff maybe someday will be, more valuable. But right now, just like, I still see those probably depreciating, especially if they do end up doing some kind of new V8 or Hellcat powered Charger, I think that could also make it a little less desirable. So I feel like, but like the JDM stuff, especially, it seems like JDM stuff is red hot. And the other thing, before we move on, related to this, Haggerty just put out like I guess a yearly thing of like what millennials and Gen Z people are insuring through Haggerty and like the collector cars they already have. And they said that with millennials, but also with like Gen Zers, R34 Skylines were very popular, and not popular just like, oh, we want them. Like there's a bunch of Gen Zers that apparently own R34 Skylines. And I'm like, that's an impressive accomplishment for people that are, younger Gen Zers to being able to afford R34 Skylines, even if they're not GTRs, even the GTSTs or whatever, like, I mean, I'm like, wow, like there's a bunch of Gen Zers that have R34 money. Like that was the most shocking statistic, I think, from that whole report that they put out. I'm like, man, that must be fun, because that's another dream, car for me too. And it's, yeah, I'm happy for them. And I was surprised there's that many Gen Zers that are insuring R34s through Haggerty. But anyway, so let me see here. Danny says, also, if you drive in New Jersey, like visit here, take this from a native, beware of Interstate 278. It's called the New Jersey Racetrack because the limit is 55 and people are pushing 80 on it sometimes. Nice. Yeah. I mean, the only time I ever go to New Jersey pretty much anymore is we there's a little vacation spot that a family friend has that we have gone to in the past a few times here in the past few years. It's in Seattle City, New Jersey. So we'll go through there. I don't even know if that cuts through the 287 or not, but That's the only New Jersey driving experience I typically have, which is mostly just a bunch of tourists and that kind of stuff. But anyway, Vishal says, did anyone see the 2000 Civic Si with 488,000 miles? Went for 10,250 on Bring a Trailer. I did not see that, but wow, that is impressive to see. Yeah, I think that might be one of the highest mileage SIs I've ever seen. I've seen some pretty high ones that have been, high 200s, low 300,000 mile range, but nothing that high. That's awesome. If I had the money to burn, that would be another really good content series. Like, buy the highest mileage stuff and try to keep, just drive. Don't abuse it, but try and just keep racking up miles on it and just see just how far you can take it. Kind of like Matt Farah's million mile Lexus kind of deal. I don't know whatever happened to that car, by the way. I didn't follow it once it hit 1 million miles. Did he just sell it, or does he still have it? I don't know, but hopefully someone's still keeping that car going. But that's awesome. I didn't see that. Thanks for bringing that up, Vishal. And Danny says, I drove on it yesterday to give the Bolt a stretch of its legs, being trapped in our backyard due to the snow we got since Sunday. Basically a week since it went out on the road. Nice. Well, always good to circulate everything and get those tires rolling. And he says, and yesterday was the first time I drove alone in a while. I just sang my heart out to the 80s on 8, the FM channel I always listen to in the area. Nice. That's awesome. 80s on 8 is a great channel. Let me see. And Danny says he's getting his first car this coming spring, also getting my first job. Well, I hope both those things go well and enjoy the hunt. Hopefully it's not too much of a pain. B. Mitchell says he found a 2012 Volkswagen Passat TDI wagon the other day at an auction. That's a pretty rare one. Almost tempted to bid on it, even with an automatic, but had both a check engine light and a DPF failure light on, so they all didn't get crushed. Oh yeah, I mean, there were a few people who refused the buyout. And also refused the retune, I think, right? I don't think you had to do it. It was free, obviously, if you wanted to, but I don't know if that was required. Maybe it was. I don't remember, but because I know a lot of people were just said it really ruined it, or they just maybe they retuned it afterwards and undid the fix or whatever. I don't know, but yeah. There were a lot not a lot, but there were some that were spared. And speaking of good investments, I mean, I'm assuming that would be the kind of undesirable stuff, kind of like the Malaise era stuff, where it's rare and historically significant, but still no one wants it. Maybe it would. But I think those cars have a charm to them, especially the European stuff. I think there's a little bit more willingness to go for those not super exciting vehicles just because of the quirkiness versus American quirky. I feel there's a whole lot less appetite for that, especially when you're talking about stuff from the 70s and the early 80s. But that's cool that you spotted one of those. That's awesome. And let me see here. Jorge, thank you so much for a super chat as well. I really appreciate it. He says, I find your rankings helpful even if I have different preferences. Example, lately you seem to be ranking GTIs over SIs. I overlook some of the engine problems, but still appreciate your input. Well, yeah, I appreciate the feedback on that. And so, yeah, so I mean, I see what you mean about how they can still be helpful even if you disagree. Yeah. I mean, I guess that, again, that's part of the appeal of why some of these others do it. Yeah, it's one of those things I'll continue to think about and think, just try and, see if that does actually add some value. And yeah, try and go from there. But, yeah, I mean, the weird thing is though, the final thing I'll say about that, the ranking video I do at the end of the year, those actually never get really that many views. And maybe it's just because no one's expecting that because they're not, I'm not putting that kind of stuff out regularly. Or maybe people just want to see it within a review instead of a dedicated thing. I don't know. But yeah, it just, I'll keep on working on that and see if there's any way that, ranking stuff formally would be helpful, or scoring things. But yeah, I mean, I do understand your point there, though, for sure about the ranking stuff. And I think that, some of these things, again, I do say in the GTI video, for example, that I like it over SI. And so maybe, that's enough, I don't know if it is or not to everyone. But I'm hoping that those types of things, without having to go into a whole like scoring section. Again, more, video length. If I can just casually mention, I like this better than SI now. Maybe that could be enough. I don't know. We'll have to see. Keep on evolving, keep on experimenting, see what happens. But I appreciate the feedback, and thank you so much for the very kind super chat as well here, Jorge. And thanks for stopping by too. And let me see. Let me get a sip of coffee here while we find our spot. Danny says, in cash alone, I have almost $1,700. Nice. Well, there's some cool stuff you can even get, for that kind of money. I mean, even some of the times when I go to the junkyards, they have like a used car section now, and a lot of them are like $2,500 and less. And there's actually some decent stuff sometimes there, or even just cool, unique stuff. Might need a little bit of work, but something that could still be kind of fun transportation potentially. And Howie says, after watching your GTI video, I think you should give the 8.5 Golf R a second shot at it. Yeah, I mean, I would say that last year, when I had the Golf R and I had the GTI, I did my full review on the GTI last year. I really enjoyed the GTI a lot even last year. And I said that in the video. And, that was before I kind of grew an awareness to all the Honda issues, which is, I think, part of what's boosting, my perception of, the sporty Volkswagens now a little bit more too, just being like, hey, like this is actually now the best choice, most likely, if you don't want to be terrified about your Honda, cooking the head gasket at 100,000 miles or less. But anyway, yeah, and I think Golf R is still, it's good for sure. Once you get to that price point, it's so hard for me to again, there's a lot of really exciting stuff. The GTI, especially the base GTI, has a nice little niche carved out for itself with that 35 grand price tag before discounts. There's not as much stuff, but once you're up over 40, you start to get, to some more impressive stuff. And I think that's kind of the problem with Golf R. You're at 50 now, right? So that makes it a little bit of a tougher sell, because for me, it's all about context. In a vacuum, something's great, but it's got to make sense value-wise for me. Otherwise, it's just a very shallow appreciation for the car. Like, this is great, but, and that there's a giant but there, yeah. I mean, the Golf R, that video did do well. So if the Volkswagen press fleet happens to have another Golf R this year, I will totally take it, because that's one thing that I learned here in the past year or so is I can repeat cars every single year if it's the popular ones that people want to see. People will watch a video of me doing a GTI at least once a year, totally fine. So same with Golf R. I will happily do a 26. I did a 25. I'll do a 26 if they have one. I won't seek it out, but if that's something that pops up like the GTI did, absolutely I will take it, because it's also a fun car. And, when I'm talking press cars with, the scheduler and stuff, like I'm always going to go for the fun stuff, because again, I know you guys want to see it more. I want to drive it more, so definitely, I think because they had a 26 GTI, I'm guessing they'll have a 26 Golf R at some point. So I'll probably do it again this year. And maybe I will appreciate it more. We'll have to see. And Dave says, hey, Matt, in your opinion, what British car manufacturer is the most iconic? For me, it'd be Aston Martin. And I don't know if that was just a deliberate setup question there or not. But I actually think that Aston Martin just, not only because of the James Bond connection, but it is really a prestigious brand. And I think, the fact that despite their, really not great sales, and despite all their financial struggles, like they keep staying alive. And I think that speaks volumes about the brand as well, because they're doing it independently. They're doing it on their own. Bentley got bought out by a Volkswagen Group, and I'm happy for them. They're healthier as a result, and they're doing great stuff. And I love Bentley. I think they're kind of right up there. Rolls-Royce, I think as far as mass consumption goes, Rolls-Royce is probably pretty close to being tied with Aston, in my opinion. But I think those are probably the top two. But I mean, even Rolls, owned by BMW. So I really respect Aston Martin for going it alone and doing things their way. And I hope it works out for them. I wish I could support them with my my own dollars. Maybe someday I'll keep playing the lottery and see what happens. But yeah, I'd say it's Aston Martin for me. And Nico says, I miss the feel of magazines and that wonderful smell. Oh, I miss it too, man. So many. I got a whole stack of Road and Tracks on the shelf still. Just, man, I got so much enjoyment out of reading those articles and getting that new magazine in the mailbox every month. It's simpler times. The nostalgia of media consumption being, hey, look, I got a new magazine in the mailbox today and I'm going to enjoy this. And then I wait for another month for the next one. Man, such a healthier state, right? Anyway, so let me see here. Nico says we're headed for a cyberpunk era. Unfortunately, yeah, seems to be the case. I'm a personal advocate of the Ready Player One kind of setup of have like an unplugged day. I think that would be really good for society. It'd be terrible for my channel, but it would be really good for society if we just turned off the internet once a week. I think that could be, obviously there's some issues there you can foresee, but like overall, like just forcing people to like get off of that stuff and like actually be human beings that interact in real life, I think would be, or if nothing else, even if you're a shut-in that doesn't ever leave your house and interact with people, like just, getting out of that doom scroll, I think would be, definitely healthy. But I don't know if we'll ever get there because, again, people don't want to be told what to do or anything like that, at least here in America. So that's probably never going to happen. But I think that would be certainly for the good if it did. Danny says the Bolt has a 4-speaker audio system and it sounds great for being a pretty basic system, especially with the music the family listens to. Nice. Well, and the good thing, Danny, since you enjoy the 80s stuff, and especially if you're listening to it on Sirius XM, which is a horrible source, terrible quality, just because, if you're actually getting it from the satellite, it's just trash. I don't know why they've never upgraded the actual satellite stuff. I think they're just hoping everyone goes the internet-based Sirius XM, which is what a lot of these newer cars are starting to do to improve that sound quality. But yeah, if you're listening to 80s from satellite radio, a 4-speaker stereo, it gives you the right, effect because it sounds pretty close to probably what it would have sounded like listening to it on a car stereo in the 80s. So you're accurate with the experience, I think. And V. Mitchell says niche magazines are what's still holding on, as I intimately know. What is helping is print in general is the S show that AI is. And that's really starting to put people off. Interesting. So I see. Like, so you're saying, so it's not, maybe you mean it's not as bad as AI, like people are like being driven away from internet stuff and they're going back to real print because they know it's not AI. Maybe that's what you mean. So that's great if niche magazines are holding on. I hadn't seen that, at least not for the import stuff. Maybe it's different for the collector stuff. But I'm happy to hear that. I'll have to peruse the magazine rack the next time I'm at the store and see if I can find some of those old ones still, or old brands, I guess. So yeah, thanks for the info. And let me see. All right, so Bill says, what's the future of the SI? Is there one? I think so. Yeah, I think SI. For me, I don't know how long they can hold out with being manual only. I mean, if they wanted to actually survive, I think eventually they're going to have to do an automatic SI. And they already have it with the Integra. It's just a CVT. That's probably the way it would go. It's not what people want to hear. But I think, Subaru gets away with it with the automatic WRX. And I think that's something I envision happening. Aside from that, though, I think there is a future for SI. They still, Civic is still a hugely popular car. And when you have those kinds of volumes, there's always going to be a sliver of people that do want more performance. So I think the Civic SI will continue on. Now, as far as how it will change, if the past is any indication, Honda doesn't want it to change. So it could have 200 horsepower for the rest of eternity. Maybe it'll have a manual forever as well. But I think you can expect more of the same. And I think Prelude is another illustration of the fact that they don't care what everyone says. They don't care what, common sense might dictate. They're just going to do things the way they want to do. And I mean, hey, I got to, commend them again for sticking to their guns. And, we'll see You know, how it plays out. I think Prelude's going to be a colossal disaster, but you know, for SI, I think, you know, it's not that much more than a regular Civic. It you know, it makes sense the way they've packaged it and priced it and stuff. So I think that it still has a good future. And Integra's doing really well. So Integra now also subsidizes that powertrain and all that stuff, because Integra is the bestseller in its segment. I mean, it's an easy segment to be bestseller in because you're competing with stuff like Audi A3, the BMW 2 Series Grand Coupe that like nobody buys, you know, and then what's the other one that's out there? The Mercedes CLA, which now is going to be way more expensive and, you know, overly complicated. It just gives you a giant screen of, or, you know, a giant dash of screens and piano black plastic. The worst interior. You want to see the worst? Here's a ranking for you. If you want to see the worst interior design of probably, I would be comfortable saying probably the worst design of the past 5 years at least, brand new CLA. It's like they phoned it in to the max. If you haven't seen it, I think I talked about this in a weekly update because I think it was before the weekly updates ended. But it's just like the two Mercedes screens, and then instead of having any kind of texture to the dash or any kind of design whatsoever, it's like a straight piece of piano black plastic. Like it must cost them 15 cents to do the rest of the dash. Like complete, like the most just garbage setup. Anyway, so anyway, I don't even know how I got on there, a little tangent there, but anyway, yeah. So I think, as far as Integra being a bestseller, but but I think Integra will help to justify Civic SI, because, you know, you're going to have those commonalities that kind of, you know, allow it to make sense. And so, and also I think they're very proud of the fact they're number one in the segment. So I don't think they're going to give up on Integra for a long time unless that stops being the case, because, you know, they like having those kinds of titles and bragging about that stuff. And I mean, Integra is really good, so they deserve it. But it's just, yeah, I think that'll help SI stick around. But I don't expect it to get more power. You know, I think they're just going to kind of march to the beat of their own drum, which means probably not a whole lot of change. And we are coming up too on fairly close to a new generation of Civic, probably because they launched that in 2022 model year. And, you know, typically it's a 5-year cadence. Now they may also, you know, kind of do the same thing they did with Accord and, you know, just freshen up the outside and still keep most of the same bones, which would mean Civic SI could keep on going with the same mechanicals into the 2030s, honestly. But you'll probably see, I'm guessing, a new design, and, you know, they'll probably try and find a way to work in the 10-inch screen or whatever at some point here. But you know, we'll see what they do with it. And Darnell says, "What's up, Matt? I haven't had a chance to hop on your live in a minute. I hope all is going well. Thanks for stopping by, Darnell. I appreciate it." And let me see. Michelle says the 2024 Jetta I had was a 4-speaker system as well, but it was the worst sound system I've ever heard in a car. Okay, well maybe it's just Jetta then, where they just really go cheap on the base ones. That's funny. And Danny says the most weird spot I saw was a 2006 Cobalt LTZ with a stick shift. I was shocked that I saw that. Save the endangered manuals. Yeah, that's a rare bird. That's awesome. You saw that. Let me see. Okay, so yeah, we already covered the channel discussions here. And so skipping over that here. Let's see. Confirmation. Thanks for stopping by, and sorry for the long wait. He says, "Hello, SuperX fan. My weird spot was a Nissan Stagia, but frankly, I see it all the time as it lives 5 minutes from my house." That's awesome. Well, that's a cool spot though to see. Yeah, I never see those, so that's really fun. Any of the cool JDM stuff always gets me excited. I guess it just goes back to the import fan is really, that's my roots, and so that always gets me excited too. So that's a fun spot. And Nico's saying, yeah, job market's crap too. Everything's terrible. Yeah, hope you've been getting somewhere with the job hunt there, Nico. But yeah, I hear you loud and clear on that. And I've been hearing that from others, and, you know, I'm even perusing stuff again, because like I've said, if I get the right opportunity and there's something that can give me stability and allow me to have healthy work-life balance again, you know, I'm open to, you know, just turning this channel into me giving an update every once in a while of, you know, my personal cars and, you know, what's going on with me, and maybe doing, little quick car videos every once in a while when I get a chance. But so we'll see. Maybe that's the way life takes me too. We'll see. So I'm bottom line, I'm also out there looking for stuff, and yeah, not a lot of great options. If you're more qualified, you might have a better luck with that. But yeah, for me, it's not that great. So hope you have better luck than Nico. And Raphael says AI isn't necessarily a bad thing, and that's from someone in IT that's more likely to be replaced by AI. Yeah, I know. I still, there's still a lot of things I don't like about AI, but there are some genuine good things about it. And one thing I saw recently that kind of put it into perspective, because the giant, just wasteful toll of electricity and water and all that stuff with AI is really the thing that bugs me the most about it. But like apparently that I've been seeing, like, as bad as it is, it's still not as bad as the fashion industry. They use way more water. And there's a lot of, like, even just like beef production is more water intensive than AI still. So it's like if we quit buying new clothes more, or and just like bought stuff that was lightly used or whatever, or just kept the stuff, or we just had good quality stuff, which is also, I'm sure you guys have seen, in the past few years, especially, quality's gone downhill so fast, and like shirts fall apart faster for me. Like everything is just cheaply made. And it's like, I wish we could get back to a thing where you could buy quality stuff and keep it for 10 or 15 years. And that would be way less of an environmental drain. Same thing, if we could cut back on our beef consumption, like that would be a huge boost. But it's like those two things are still way worse than AI apparently, as far as consuming that stuff. And so I'm like, okay, well, that puts it into perspective. Like, little things we can do to kind of improve the environmental toll on these things, I think is good. But it's good to hear that AI isn't the worst, at least, but certainly not like we needed to add a third thing that was a giant waste of resources. But but that's another thing, yeah, that's not great. But I mean, yeah, AI, I think there's a lot of potential if we can do it responsibly, which I think won't happen. But if we could, I think it actually could be a lot of good. And Michelle says, also, my car is now fully taken care of. Both leaks are fixed. Oh, that's great to hear. The bill sucked, but needed to be done. I was recommended to do a spark plugs too, but it wasn't an urgent thing, so I'm waiting till next time. Nice, yeah. Well, I mean, the good thing, yeah, with you put that little bit of money into the car, and even if it's a big bill, then you go out there and you look at what new car prices are, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, you could get that new car, and then you're spending that repair bill every month on a car payment, or whatever the case is. So if you got a car and you love it, and it's treating you well for the most part, aside from the occasional little thing you need to do, stick with it. That's something I'm respecting and valuing more and more. I mean, I do enjoy leasing stuff for us because I do like having like the most state-of-the-art safety, and the EVs do actually save us a nice bit of money, and especially now if we have whatever that waterway that just got shut down as a result of the war this weekend. Gas prices are probably going to go up. I mean, OPEC's going to boost oil production, they said, but the transit costs are still going to go up. So gas prices are going to get more expensive. So I'm like, definitely very happy with having the EV right now. But yeah, I think it'd be nice to try and find something I can like buy and hold and stick with. So we'll see what happens. That might be kind of the intent with the next EV, especially if there's not like crazy lease deals. And if, you can get something lightly used and get a lot of that depreciation eaten up, then maybe just buying something and trying to pay it off and actually hold on to something longer, could be the way to go. We'll see. So I think that's very, very smart if you can get away with it and pick the right car and get good luck with not having repair bills left and right. That's the way to save the money for sure. Let me see. So Linda says you talk really fast in your reviews. Try to work in more humor. Yeah, the humor angle is certainly something I need to work in a little bit more. I think, I find myself like, when I'm watching the edits of the reviews, there's some where I do a better job with, like even some of my critiques where I'm like, this is like ridiculous, and just making it funny in that regard, with like the rants kind of being funny and me, going off on, a stupid feature on a car or something. But like, yeah, trying to work that in even in the regular stuff and trying to make them a little more fun is another thing I certainly need to improve. I totally agree, Linda. And the talking fast, I feel like I've slowed down with the talking, but I know that used to be a common complaint for a long time. And I would get so many comments, people being like, slow down, like quit talking so fast. And I think I've gotten better at that. You guys can totally say that's not the case if it's not. And I appreciate all feedback. But I feel like at least when I look back at my older videos, there was a season there where I was really talking fast. I think my really old stuff, I actually was talking slower, and then I got really quick. And I feel like now I'm getting better at taking a beat every once in a while. But again, it's just, I think for a lot of people though, that's another thing with the reviews. It's a challenge because I am going a million miles an hour. And I think for a lot of people, it's like, okay, like this is a little too much. I'm going to go click on to, a Joe Rady video where he's a former teacher. He's very good at slowing down and explaining stuff and taking a beat and not rushing stuff. And I think I can learn a lot from those kinds of presentation styles and try and be, better about, still saying a lot, but not rushing through it. And I appreciate your feedback there, Linda, too, on that. And let me see. Also, Jorge, thank you for the super chat that then got retracted. It looks like, or maybe that was the one that you did previously. So thank you so much for being a member for 47 months now as well. Really appreciate that. Yeah, another OGs here of the channel. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I forgot it was actually, I think it was March whenever I launched the channels or the membership stuff. So yeah, we'll be coming up. You'll hit the 4-year mark, which reminds me, actually, thank you for reminding me. I need to do a new badge for 4-year people because that'll be you here this month. So actually, I'm going to make a note of this right now. Apologies for the 10 seconds of silence here, but I'm going to make a new note to remind myself to do a badge here. Because I want to make sure that those of you who are the OGs especially get that extra recognition there for 4 years of support every single month. And I appreciate it now more than ever. And I need it now more than ever too. So thank you so much for that. And anyway, your comment, and he says, the comment about the SI having to get an auto to survive has me thinking, any plausible hope of an enthusiast lightweight hybrid manual? Well, I think if anyone's going to do it, Honda could be one of them, but just not with their current hybrid powertrain because there's just no way to do it in that. But I think there's going to have to be something. And I'm wondering, we just saw this GR Celica thing that was spied this week. And we'll see how they end up playing it because it sounds like that could just get the GR Corolla motor, just port it over because I don't think the 2-liter is ready yet. The 2-liter GR motor, they could surprise us, or maybe that'll come, mid generation or something. But if it's actually something that's coming for 2027, I'm pretty sure it's going to be GR Corolla motor. And it could also actually be because Corolla, the way it's timing out, I could see this new GR Celica actually replacing GR Corolla and GR86 because both of those are like kind of nearing probably their sunsetting of both of those. They could go 10 years or 15 years if they decide to, because Toyota has done that before. But I feel like, especially Corolla, they're going to have to do a new gen Corolla, and you can't have, you can just, if it's going to use the same platform, they can copy all that over. But getting back to the hybrid thing though, there's talks of, and this was a rumor with the next gen GRD6, if that actually is ever going to be a thing, which I have my doubts about now. But, the idea that to meet, if they want to keep, especially if they want to keep the same engine, but even with these other engines that they're doing, like they're probably going to have some kind of hybridization for Europe because of the Euro 7 emissions regulations. They really do ramp up. And I think, that's something that if they want to sell in Europe, which is important because especially the rally stuff, they need to sell it in Europe. So I think they're going to have to come up with something. And I think that it'll actually be Toyota will be the first to, introduce some kind of hybridization and still work it out with a manual. I think they're going to be the ones to do it. And knowing how Akio is so adamant on how he loves manuals and how he loves hot hatches. That's his favorite segment, he said, actually, which was a nice surprise. And also a very, I have some issues with Akio and it's not personally, I've never met the guy, but as far as just other things that he's done and said in the past, but the fact that I don't know if you guys saw the article, but he said in the past like week or two here that like if he had it his way, he'd only do hot hatches because that's like his favorite thing. And I'm like, this is a guy who is actually like the heir to the Toyota fortune. I mean, his last name is Toyoda, not Toyota, but like, anyone who knows the Toyota history, it's, it goes, that's his family. And so someone who admittedly was born with a silver spoon to have an appreciation for the humble hot hatches and not be like, oh, it's, the supercars and all that, which would be totally fair of him to say too, because supercars are awesome. And if you got the means, like knock yourself out. I certainly would if I had the money. But like, he's like, no, like hot hatches are my favorite thing. So like, if he has a passion for hot hatches, then one, I think that means their future is safe, at least as long as Akio has sway. But I think that he would not be okay with it just being an automatic if it went hybridized. And I think it's going to have to go hybridized to some degree. So that's why, to me, all signs point to Toyota manual hybrid being the first. They'll be the first one to do it, I think. And based on how Toyota is just always awesome with doing things that others won't do as well, I think that's going to be their domain. But I think it could happen, and it would still be lightweight because I think again that's another important factor of hot hatches. And the Toyota hybrid system is pretty light, pretty small, pretty minimal. Even if it is a full hybrid, I don't think it's going to ruin the car personally. So yeah, I'm hoping that happens. We'll see. But great question there, Jorge. And Lancelot, thanks so much for being a member for 19 months as well. He says, I'm happy to be here. Thanks so much for your support too, Lancelot. I always appreciate all your membership gifting and all your super chats here and all the generosity every week. And thank you so much for that, Lancelot. I really appreciate it. Let me see. Getting back to the other questions here. Where are we here? So Nico says, I was replaced by AI. I hate AI. I was a senior financial analyst. Yeah, there's a lot of those kinds of jobs where it's going to be tough. And I'm sorry that, it replaced you. And we'll see how it goes. I think it's kind of like the internet bubble kind of thing where it could very well pop. And we'll see, when the pieces are picked up after that, where things go. But, you look at the financial sheets for these AI companies. I mean, they are burning insane amounts of money. And aside from, Gemini, I think Gemini from Google is really the only one that may survive a bubble burst, or at least survive in the same form it's in right now, because they have Google's backing and because I think Google's very smart. I don't know how they're pulling this off better than OpenAI is, but like with Google, I mean, they are like, if you see every single new car release so far, like this year, it's got Gemini integration, and that's like the whole new thing we're going to see for all these, future cars, Gemini integration. And I think it's going to be used in some cool ways. But I mean, like, that's the way to get the money out of it. Like, and also, Google has the agreement now with Apple. So it sounds like Siri is going to be Gemini based. That's like, they're actually going to make money off of Gemini. The other stuff, it's still, mostly free, and there's not really any, I mean, they're using it and selling it in other ways and stuff. So, I mean, it's not like it's a complete, cash lighting on fire with no hope in sight, but like, I think a lot of these other ones could possibly crash. And I think the coolest thing as far as car world stuff goes that I've seen, I don't know if you guys watched the reveal of the Volvo EX60. That's one that I'm interested in because, we'll see. Right now we would not have the money for it, but if I can manage to turn the channel around, it would be a contender for us after the Lyric, in the middle of next year. But like, I watched the reveal of that, and like, one of the really cool things is the Gemini integration uses the forward-facing cameras of the safety systems and can do all kinds of contextually aware stuff. So if you pass by a cool restaurant, you can tell Gemini, like, save that restaurant that we just passed, and it'll know what you're talking about. I mean, in theory, I don't know. We'll see in practice if it actually works that well. But like, really, like, I think that's the future for AI car stuff. The voice assistants, as far as like, route me to this or that, like, that's already been mostly figured out. But like, that's really the next level of like really helping you to like kind of understand your surroundings better. And like, the cool thing with the Volvo integration, they actually said it can do car spotting. So they're like, if you drive by a cool car and you don't know what it is, you can say, "Hey Gemini, what was that car that just passed?" And it'll tell you like that was a 1966 blah 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 blah. Blah. And it's supposedly, I mean, again, we will see if it's actually this good in theory or in practice, but in theory, like it sounds really awesome. Like, you know, if I see some weird thing or I didn't catch a good glimpse of it or whatever, I can say, "Hey, what was that?" And it'll tell you. And I never actually thought I would see the day where your car can car spot for you. Like, as an enthusiast, that kind of, I mean, again, it's not like it's hugely valuable, but it's like, oh, like that's actually kind of cool. You know, I think there's, you know, little fun things, but yeah, if it comes at the cost of people's jobs and not creating new jobs or not, you know, actually benefiting society appreciably, then yeah, we'll just have to see how it all plays out. But it's the Wild West right now. But I really think a lot of it, they can't all survive. There'll probably be a giant consolidation. But I fully expect it to be another, you know, internet bubble burst like the 90s for any of you who remember that stuff. And let me see. Let me see. Xavier says it was almost 90 today in the Metro Tucson area. Wow, that's crazy. Speaking of the warmer temperatures earlier, that's crazy. You guys are already in the 90s. And Michelle says we're already in the 80s in DFW. We need to catch up. No, we'll get there. Yeah, it's always weird around here, but yeah, it's usually we gotta wait till May for those kind of temps. And Nintendo Atari Killer says there's an old saying: if you throw enough crap at the wall, something will stick. Yeah, and that's truly been, yeah, especially true for me in the past couple of years here. You know, it used to be very predictable, and you know, I had some kind of direction and all that, but now it's truly. And actually, I was talking to Roman Micah from the Fast Lane Car a few years ago about this, and you know, even a few years ago, I was struggling with the channel, and you know, I had a real heart to heart with him about it, and he was like, "Dude," he's like, "my strategy is I just keep throwing stuff at the wall. You never know what's gonna stick." And that's really worked well for them, because yeah, they do have some stuff that, you know, sounds like a cool idea and it bombs, and they have other stuff that, you know, does super well. And you know, that's the thing with YouTube is you really never know. And the other thing too, you know, getting back to the Facebook thing I was talking about earlier, that's another thing where like throwing enough crap at the wall and seeing what sticks. Those Facebook videos, I mean, it's hilarious how artificial the views are. And just as an insider's perspective, if you're, you know, not in the world of posting on Facebook or anything, those videos, those reels that I post, it's hilarious to watch what the algorithm does, because I see it in real time, because I'll upload one of those Batman videos. And this it doesn't matter what kind of videos. I upload a video to Facebook, and maybe other content types are different, but for the stuff I do, all the views come in the first 10 to 15 minutes, all of them. Like all these ones I posted here in the past, you know, a few days, I hit upload, it goes live, and then I just watch the notification counter on Facebook. It's just ding, 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 ding. And it's just like, you can see they're putting their thumb on the scale, and they're shooting it out to a ton of people. And I get like 400 likes in 5 minutes. And then it just dead. It like actually like gets no more views. And it's just so, you know, at least the Facebook stuff is completely manipulated. There's no organic stuff. It just, they blast it until they feel like they're done blasting it, and you're completely at their mercy. It doesn't matter what it is. I could post a picture of a banana on my desk, and if the algorithm wants it, it's going to get 1 million likes. It doesn't matter. And like, you know, and so with these Batman videos, some of the ones I thought were really cool, like didn't get as many likes. And then the things I'm like, oh, I don't know, maybe this one won't get any views. I don't know. Those get a bunch of likes. There's no rhyme or reason. It's completely. And I mean, also, this is, I think, one of Matt Farah's podcasts. He was saying, like, as much as I know there are real people on the other side of this, and I know that the 54 of you that are in here were actually having a real conversation with, like, you are real. But like beyond the people I actually interact with and know are real people, like, a lot of this stuff, it still is completely fabricated. YouTube does the same exact thing. I saw this with the Junkyard channel. The first video on the Relics of the Rust Belt channel, 20,000 views on the first video. That was not real. But YouTube put their thumb on the scale because they try to give you that dopamine hit of, oh, wow, I actually have a future on YouTube. They didn't know that I was a veteran on YouTube because it's a new channel. But that's what they do. They try and hook you. And you say, wow, okay, I got 20,000 views. And then you're always chasing that phantom of, okay, well, if I just do well enough, I'll get to that same level of that first video, and it never does. I mean, maybe for some people, obviously, you will someday grow, but like and that's kind of one of the things I try and cut myself a break with these as well, because I think there are some meaningful things I can do to improve. I certainly think that my videos are not perfect. I'm not perfect. I have a lot of room for improvement for sure. But I do think that there is a real component where I know that, like, if for whatever reason they decide to put their thumb on the scale, it'll be huge. And I truly feel like some channels out there, it is truly just the thumb is on the scale. And I don't know how it got there, but I look at some videos, not even the car sector, just like in general, and I'm like, there is no way this is real. There's no way this is actually this successful. And it's just, there's some of this stuff is completely algorithm manipulated for whatever reason. But yeah, it's very interesting. So anyway, yeah, that's why we're literally making videos for the algorithm here on YouTube anymore. Just throw it at the algorithm and see if it decides to actually show it to you guys or not. It's unfortunate that that's what it's come to. But anyway, so I'm not paying 42 grand for a prelude. Thanks for stopping by. Okay, it's bassist. I still love you're sticking with with that username. And Danny says, marching band at my high school, which I'm in. We're going to be in our town's St. Patrick's Day parade a week from now. My last St. Patty's Day parade as a high school band senior. Well, I hope it's a great one and enjoy it to the max. And that's very fun. And let me see. Darnell says the best for a 25-year-old bachelor. As far as the video lengths and all that, for sure, it's great if you got the time. I mean, there are still some though. The final thing I'll say about that, like some still do really well. Like Savage Geese does these really deep dive videos, and they do them the best, and that's why they get a ton of views too. But like there is an appetite for super in depth stuff. It's just it's like if you want to watch that, you watch Savage Geese, and then you're done. You don't need to watch my video or anyone else's. So. I think there's those types of things that show that like there is some demand, but just not enough to go around for the rest of us, really. And let me see. Fook, thanks so much for being a member for 33 months now. I really appreciate all that support as well. And he says you can never really know if I'm a bot. Fair enough. Yeah, we will just keep on being optimistic that everyone here is real, aside from that one spammer who every once in a while sneaks in and decides to blow up the chat here with stuff. Thankfully, it sounds like they've found something better to do, or they've gone back on their meds or something, because they're not bothering us here tonight, thankfully. Anyway, HPL says, hey, Matt, I hope all is well with you and your family. What car news has you most excited from last month? The Celica, for sure. That's the one, which was a complete surprise because, we've heard rumors and stuff, but then to have that come out of the blue was really exciting. And there's some people that are saying that it's only a rally car and there's not an actual production-based thing coming based off of that, because I guess the rules have changed for 2027 in particular for WRC, that you're able to have something that doesn't have to be connected. But the counterpoint that I saw, which I think I agree with, is that a rally car is a really good marketing tool, and I guess you don't have to, but if you're going to have a rally car that's going to be all over the circuits and doing all this promo and stuff, you want it to point to a car that people can go out and buy. So I don't buy that it's only going to be a rally car and that it's going to be some anonymous blob that has no connection to a real production car, especially coming from Toyota. If we were talking about Subaru or someone else who we're more used to being disappointed from, I'd say, yeah, maybe that kind of makes more sense. But like, based on how typically awesome Toyota is, and again, the marketing power of that, I don't think they're going to waste that opportunity with some fake car that just is completely unbased in reality. So we'll see what happens, but that's definitely the thing that has me the most excited. And let me see. And Danny also says New Jersey had a high of 44 today. We're still pretty cold and nice. Yeah, we'll be getting that tomorrow. Today was in the 30s still, so I'm hoping that that's the end of that here. And Darnell says, Oh, I see what you're saying. Sorry, the best for a 24-year-old bachelor. As far as car rankings, sorry, I misunderstood. The best for a 4-year-old family man. Yeah, I mean, I can see that kind of thing. If you classify it and put it in those groups, that could be a fun way to rank. That's actually that's a good idea. It's not a bad idea to do. Like, yeah, because I don't know if anyone else really ranks with those categories. It's always just like, well, this is the best sports car, this is that or the other. But that's a fun way to put it. It could be a fun idea. I'm gonna noodle on that one some more and see if I can come up with some content strategies. I also, with the experimentation, I don't know if it'll be this week because this week I'm kind of busy. I'm going to be doing a trip, but I think this month I'm probably going to experiment with another new content type. In addition, I'm going to keep the rants around, keep the reviews around, but I think I'm going to experiment with another thing that I think has pretty good potential, and I don't think anyone else is doing it that I know of. And I'm not going to say what it is just yet, but it's another potential thing to at least be as good as the rants. We'll see what happens, but that's another cool thing to maybe add to keep in my back pocket and maybe see if I can put something out like that too. That could be fun. I appreciate the suggestion there now. He says, just make a bunch of shorts on the best car for a certain demographic. Yeah. I mean, once I make them as shorts, then they lose all appeal to me because then they just don't make any money. So, I think it would probably, and that's something also, I guess I could really be concise and not really explain my list as much, which would probably be better since you guys know how I over explain, but I feel like I could, even just keep it to like a 5-minute video, like a horizontal video and still again get decent monetization on YouTube with a horizontal video and still do something concise and do a list of 10 for the best 40-year-old family man cars or whatever. That's a fun idea. Let me see. Yeah, Danny, I was excited about too, hanging out with us here. And Raphael says it's a sports car. When it has issues, you just accept them and do repairs. Yeah, I think for sports cars, that is the way a lot of people will go about it. It just comes down to your tolerance for reliability issues and how much you want to work on stuff and all that. I think for a lot of people, it's something they'd rather just drive and enjoy stuff and not wrench, but a lot of people do love the wrenching component as well. It's just differences in personality for sure. And Nintendo is giving us another joke here. He says, I want to see a Y2K ghost haunting me with Jenko jeans. Boo jeans is what Jenk says. Aha, there you go. Yeah, that's the Jenko stuff's kind of coming back, isn't it? I think it's like, well, at least the super baggy stuff. I'm saying, some of the teenagers and stuff having these like gigantic jeans. And I'm like, wow, that's a throwback. I honestly didn't think that one would come back, but sure enough, here it is. And let me see. Captain Donut says, I would have went with a base Mustang Mach-E, but I wanted the glass roof and the Blue Cruise was included. Yeah, the glass roof is really nice to have for sure. And also I like in those, you don't get perforated seats unless it's the premium. You get the regular vinyl or, whatever they call their synthetic leather thing in those. And that would get a little hot, I think, so, you can live with it, but for me, that would be, that's part of the reason why we went for the premium back when we ordered the Mach-E. Vishal says, good that you've got a regular Jetta Sport. Curious on your thoughts on it. Still a great car for the money. When I got my 24, I looked at Sport, but I really wanted a proximity key, so I got the SE instead. Yeah, which, same thing as the GTI. It's like, I don't love it. Actually, the nice thing about the Jetta is that you actually have a twist key ignition, which I haven't had in a press car, and it's probably been at least 2 or 3 years. And I have one commenter, I don't think they're in here tonight, but they always comment about twist key ignitions. Like they love it. So they're going to be very excited whenever I show that in the review. But so actually, to me, that is a better setup than the GTI setup of, you got to take the key out of your pocket to unlock it in the GTI, then put it back in your pocket or throw it somewhere in the car because you got to still the push button start in the GTI. With this, you get the key out of your pocket, that just stays out of your pocket. You turn on the car and that's it. But yeah, even like this week, you guys are probably be so annoyed because I'm sure many of you still have twist key ignitions. But like for me, like even just like having that key like bumping my knee, the little keychain part or whatever, I was like, wow, this is nostalgic. I haven't had something like bumping into my knee from the ignition there in a lot in a long time. So that was kind of a fun little stupid throwback for me. But so I actually like the Jetta having, yeah, you pull it out, you do it the old fashioned way, and that's, that's fine. I have no issues with that really. You get used to it. And again, if it's, I don't know what I haven't researched fully yet on the price differences for Jetta, but if it's a big jump from Sport to SE, it might be hard to recommend the SE depending on the extra equipment you get. So, but yeah, I mean, I can certainly relate though. The niceness of having a proximity key is really comes in handy a lot of times. So it's usually been something that's been a must-have feature for me. But as I'm getting stingier here, I'm like, you know what? I can live with that, especially in a GTI when you're saving $4,500 or whatever. It's like, yeah, this is definitely something I can live with. And let me see. Fenton Run says, "Hey man, with the poor sales, do you think Cybertruck production will end this year?" I don't know. I mean, I don't know how this has settled, but since they announced the Cybertruck getting the 20 grand discount or whatever, it said, and again, I don't know if I believe it, but it was saying that now deliveries are pushing out to 2027, like they're actually in demand again. Now they have so much inventory. Maybe the inventory is only of the higher trims that people still don't want. And it's the base one that's just sold out, and they're just not making enough of the base ones. But it sounds like they may have at least a little bit of demand there for that. And maybe all the, people that wanted the Cyber Beast or whatever, maybe they just have burned through all those people. And so now it's just going to the others. I don't know. But I think that Cybertruck will probably stick around no matter how bad it gets, just because it's the only new thing. And with how Tesla is just, shedding off cars left and right with, the S and the Y, or the S and the X, I think that they have to keep the truck around no matter how bad it is. And also I think they're really proud of the truck, and, it has some new technologies like the 48 volt electrical system and, some of these other new things. So I think Cybertruck will stick around. I wish it wouldn't, but I think it will. So, yeah, I think that's not going to go the same way as the other electric trucks might. And let me see here. Also, sorry, I missed a couple other chats here that came in. So Tumbling Mustard, thanks so much for being a member here for 2 years. I really appreciate it. He says, yo, I'm late to join, so I apologize if it's been discussed. Do you think the reports of a Lincoln Bronco type SUV are legit? We haven't talked about that yet, actually. So yeah, I saw that come up here this week as well. I don't know. My knee-jerk reaction is that doesn't fit the Lincoln that we know and what they seem to have wanted to be. But if they are either trying to subsidize Bronco because maybe they're needing some help there, or if they just are actually going to change Lincoln, I mean, it's possible. I would be a little bit surprised if Lincoln tries to go away from the classy kind of vibe they've had. I mean, it's not to say that having a Bronco type thing would, exclude them from having anything else, but I think that just doesn't fit with what I would expect from Lincoln. Now, I think the counterpoint to that though is that they are seeing the writing on the wall, that it seems like there's more and more of these companies that are clearly headed in this direction. Genesis, just showed off in New York last year. There, and I was there for the reveal or whatever. I don't even remember what it's called, but it's like a Genesis SUV that's rugged and off-road ready. And I think they have production intent for that. So if Genesis is doing it, and then there's another one that was showing off something like that. I can't remember who it was. There's another concept, same kind of idea of, okay, this is a rugged, like the actual off-road all-terrain tires and stuff on a luxury SUV. And if that's going to be kind of, one of these future things, then maybe Lincoln says, oh, well, we've got that already. We've got that at home. Let's cook some of that up. I think they could maybe do that. So I can see a case for it. It just would be a shift for the brand. So I don't know. We'll see how. I mean, also Bronco is kind of getting to the point of needing a new generation fairly soon. So, maybe it could be something for a new generation. If it gets softer, then maybe Bronco wouldn't be as extreme as it is today. And then maybe that's where you see Lincoln kind of being like, okay, well, now it's been softened up. It's not quite as hardcore. And we can, have this be a little more palatable for a Lincoln buyer. But otherwise, the other thing though, that to me that just smells like BS with that report is that I don't think they would do a Lincoln Bronco before they do a Lincoln F-150. Like, I know they've tried it twice before and it hadn't worked out, but like, come on, like that's the best selling thing by a long shot in America. Even if it did terribly, it would still, sell probably better than Tundra. And like, it would be, especially with the profit margins on that. I mean, easy, big money. And there's clear demand for that. I don't know if there's demand for a Lincoln Bronco. I really don't think there is. I think, and maybe it's just my own stupid opinions, but like, I think there's a good business case to be made because of all the 100 grand trucks out there to just slap a Lincoln badge on it, give it, all the Lincoln stuff on the inside and charge 120. I think that completely would sell to the urban cowboys that, like to mall crawl and pretend they use their trucks for anything. I think that would absolutely might be really good. So like, I think Lincoln Bronco eventually, but I think we would have all these other things coming first. But also Ford and Lincoln do some things that don't make sense a lot of times. So, again, maybe if they have some ulterior motive with, subsidizing Bronco or something like that. But just to me, there would be other things that would happen first, even though there is a trend headed in that direction, I think. But yeah, great question, and thanks for stopping by, Tumbling Mustard. And confirmation, thank you so much for being a member for 5 months now. He says, Jetta GLI, why bother? So I'm not sure if that's in regards to the GTI discussion we had or what, but I mean, I love GLI. I personally think it's great. And like I said, I take it over an SI these days because, I got to worry about a water pump and hopefully that's it versus SI, catastrophic engine failure or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I like GLI. If you watch my video on it, I really enjoyed it. And it's got that manual still too. And yeah, I mean, I prefer GTI better from a driving standpoint still, but GLI is great. And Jordan, thank you so much for being a member for 29 months now. I really appreciate that. He says, in your opinion, what is the actual reasoning behind brands cutting out the manual? Do you think plasma could ever factor into auto mobility? I'm not sure I don't know about the plasma stuff, or I'm not even sure what you're referring to there. As far as brands cutting out the manual, it's a combination of factors. I kind of talked about this a little bit in the BMW getting rid of the manual video that I did, the rant a week or so ago, maybe that's 2 weeks now, but like for the M, for example, for the M2, like they said, even though it's a 50% take rate, like take rate's actually not bad, but it's just the volumes are so low still that 50% of, I don't know what they sell, 8,000 cars or something, like that's 4,000 cars. Like the problem that they said that they've been running into, even if you say, okay, let's not worry about the emissions component, which they do have to worry about in Europe. So that's a very real restriction. And especially when we're talking about European cars, that's a problem. But even if we talk about, okay, let's talk about, American manuals, say a GM or a Ford or something like that, where they don't have to worry about the rest of the world and they can just, be isolationists with their strategy for some of this stuff. Even if you say, okay, we'll give them that and not have to worry about emissions, it's a supplier issue of, the volumes, if they're not high enough, you run out of a supplier that wants to do that. And it's a slippery slope because it's like, okay, well, yeah, sure. Lots of shops would be happy to build 4,000 manuals a year for a car company, but then that gets more expensive. And as the quality is tight, if you're doing it through an aftermarket shop or something, the whole point of volume is that you get a reduction in price. This is obviously, any wholesale, anything, that's the whole thing, is the more that you buy, the cheaper they get. And then the easier it is to make a business case for including that. If you, go to a supplier and say, hey, look, we're anticipating we're going to do 50,000 of these things with a manual. And then you say, give us a price for what you will charge us to build 50,000 manuals to put into our new sports car. And they give you that price. If you say, I'm only going to do 5,000 of these, that's a very different price. Because again, you got to go to a smaller shop because a huge, I don't even know, some like ZF or something. a giant thing like that, they're not going to waste production capacity on a tiny little niche thing like that. They're going to say, go to the niche, shop that does this or whatever. And that's a lot more expensive. I mean, anyone who's, a tuner or anything knows about this. I mean, it's expensive, especially when you're talking on a micro scale, like a lot of these manual conversions, like the Aston Martin manual conversion, some of these like Ferrari manual conversions, it's like 20 grand. I mean, you're appealing to an exotic buyer, so I'm sure there's a healthy margin there, but like, it's expensive. And then that wrecks the business case, because then, you tell someone, sure, you can have a manual in the next M2. It's $5 grand upcharge. Then that kills your take rate immensely. I mean, if you have a 50% take rate now, and I think it's a free option, I don't think there's any upcharge, for the automatic or anything. It's just like, I think it's an even, that a lot of cars, it's like that, where it's an even thing. You don't have to pay an upcharge, or if you do pay an upcharge, it's for the automatic, which puts, the ball in the manual's court and gives that even more of a favorable approach. I think for some exotic stuff or higher end stuff, like a Porsche 911, for example, I think they could probably tack on a $5 grand upcharge for a manual and people would pay it. But, this is probably why even, the 911 has the manual with their low volumes. They're probably in very much a position or like that, where it's like they have enormous profit margins on 911, and so they can, absorb it, at least for now. But, I think that's the biggest problem. And I actually hadn't thought about the supplier thing, and that was a very enlightening interview to read from the head of BMW M. Because it's always like, oh, well, if we just buy enough of them, it'll happen. But, for some of these things, it's just like, we have to be realistic about this. Like, they're never going to sell 50,000 M2s. It's not going to happen. Even if they were 30 grand, it's not going to happen. You look at Mustang, because that's cheaper. They sell, more, but it's still not huge volumes. And the reason why the V8 Mustang is still sticking around is because it's in the F-150. If it wasn't, that you probably would be kissing that motor goodbye, most likely. So, I mean, I think that's kind of the real problem. And I don't see a solution to that, again, unless we get huge volume manuals out there, or stuff where they can spread the same manual across multiple cars, which was, I think, part of how BMW kept it alive for so long, because the manual M2 is the same thing as the manual M3, because they all have the same power output. They're all limited to that 406 pound-feet of torque, and you have it in M4, M3, M2. And, then you tell a supplier, okay, well, we're only doing 5,000 of each of these, but it's 15,000 total. It's like, okay, well, now we can maybe work with that. You kind of meet in the middle or whatever. And I think that's how they package it. And so I think, especially for some of these cars where it's a single model, or it's, way lower volumes, that's really hard to do. So, I think that's the main problem. But the emissions thing is certainly problematic as well. But I think you could engineer around that if you had the incentive to. But it's just, okay, so then you have, in Europe, you have the emissions stuff that's making it hard. You have the supplier stuff making it hard. And the take rate, especially in Europe, is pretty low still. So then it's like, well, can we justify this just for America? Like, that makes it even harder. So you can just see the chips are stacking against them there. One by one by one, you stack it up, you got a giant wall of issues that you can't overcome. And that's kind of how you get to those positions where I think you'll see manuals become an exotic thing, Pagani, Utopia, and stuff like that as an example. The Gordon Murray stuff, I think there is immense demand for that stuff. Like Gordon Murray, he offered an automatic in the I think of the T33, but I think you can get an automatic in both of them. But he actually said in an interview, he's like, I regret even bothering to engineer the automatic, because I think he said out of the 100 cars they're building, I think he said 5 people ordered the automatic. Everyone wants a manual for that type of a car. And I think it makes complete sense. I think the second you see Ferrari finally go back to a manual, and you see Lamborghini go back to a manual, enormous interest. I can see stuff go off the charts. I can't believe they haven't done it yet. Because I think they've finally come to the realization that people don't care about having 2,000 horsepower and all that anymore, because they're all getting smoked by EVs anyway. So it's like, all right, it's same as the Charger crowd and everything. Go for, the manual experience, go for the slow engine that, people enjoy. And, I think that's, it's absolutely going to be a thing, but it won't be a thing for the mass market stuff, sadly. And also HPL, thank you so much for being a member for 41 months now. I really appreciate that. He says, I know it can be hard to keep track of, but I'm Don, by the way. Sorry about that. And yes, hopefully things look up. I appreciate that. And I hope so too. It's, again, slowly heading in a positive direction on the channel. We'll see if I can keep this hamster wheel spinning. But for now, I'm optimistic. Hopefully things continue to be good here. And Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, was the Ford Lightning a result of a collab with Rivian? No, I don't believe so. I believe the Lightning was mostly a Ford thing on their own. I don't think they had any help. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was all Ford. Because I know Ford did do early investments in Rivian. I don't know if they've divested out of that or not yet. That's a good question. I haven't thought about that in a while. Maybe Rivian did help. I just don't recall, but I thought that was all Ford. Because that was around the time when Rivian was working on their own truck, and I don't think an R1T shares anything with a Lightning. So I don't think it was. That's a good question, though. I can get you a better answer if I can actually look it up. Let me see. But thank you so much for the super chat. Let me see here. We got another 15 minutes or so, but I don't think we're too far behind here. Maybe we are. We'll try and get a little more concise here. Rain says, I actually saw a Cybertruck today. He parked by me and I got a good look at it. It has got to be the weirdest design I've ever seen. Yeah, they are certainly weird. That's for sure. And Raphael says, you'll do better than me, Matt. It won't take till you're late 50s to get everything paid off. We'll see. We'll see what happens, especially, with this economy and stuff. I mean, hopefully it doesn't last forever, but I'll keep my fingers crossed. I appreciate the confidence you have in me, Raphael. But I think, it's still, even if you're in your 50s, it's still a very, very awesome thing to be accomplishing. Also, Corvette says, well, my dad did it. Was unexpected, not originally on his list, but the deal was too good to pass up. So my dad is now the proud owner of a 2025 BMW iX xDrive 50. He's loving it a lot. That's awesome. Congrats to him on finding a car that's good for him there. And iX, I've heard really good things about. I have not ever reviewed one or even sat in one, but it seems like people really seem to like them, a good bit. So hope it treats him well. I hope he enjoys it, and glad that his car hunt is over and he doesn't have to worry about the misery of going to dealers and, having salesmen bore you to death and all that stuff. That's awesome. And Nintendo Atari Killer says, can vouch for Volkswagen speakers. Fender sound system is missing the highs. Bass 6 speaker in the Mark 7 Golf is pretty good, but lacking bass. Buddy of mine has a 10-inch sub for me and wants to pimp my ride. Nice. Well, yeah, take it if you want, if you don't mind giving up the trunk space there. I had I think I had a 10-inch sub in my Legacy GT Spec B back in the day, whenever, the bass heavy stuff was, especially for my, for our generation, all the rage. So the Legacy was bumping. I mean, it wasn't a huge, a lot of my buddies had 12s and I think even a 16 on the one guy's car. But it's fun. But yeah, I mean, I even saw a few comments from people in the GTI video where they were saying, they just upgraded some of the speakers, or they just upgraded the subwoofer and they left everything else as is. And, there's a lot of ways you can still improve those stereos too, and still, save money over going for a higher trim, which might not even have a great stereo anyway. Mr. 705 says he'd take a water pump over the Honda head gasket. I'm glad it's not just me. And Joey says, I believe that STI was on Cars and Bids. Makes sense. Let me see here. Timothy says, do you like the new S650 Mustang GT? I do. I did a review of one a couple years ago, so definitely check that out if you want to see my thoughts on the S650. But yeah, they're good. When they came out, they were too expensive. Now there's some healthy discounts on them, and you can get some lightly used ones pretty nice and cheap. I still think S550 is a better value, but if you want the newer stuff, the S650 is great too. Theodore says, I just saw an electric blue Dodge Conquest drive past my house. You think they should bring that back? Wow, that is a throwback. I mean, I certainly think that Dodge should do some kind of affordable sedan. I don't know why they gave up on it. I have a very unpopular opinion that Dart was unappreciated and should have done better, because I actually think it was good. And it's so funny because I just saw Tommy Micah from TFL at the event I was at. It was actually the Mazda CX-5 thing. And he always like jabs me about it playfully because he thinks the Dart is like the worst car ever made, and I'm like, it's the greatest thing. And and we'll be like in a group of us, like we were on the Mazda thing, and he'll be like, Matt, like tell them all the reasons why the Dart is like was like ahead of its time. And I'm like, it had the biggest screen for its time. It had like, like really good handling. It was based on an alpha handling and Fiat chassis and stuff. Like it was actually really good. And I go into this whole thing and it's always a big laugh. But I think that Dodge should come back with a new Dart. I think Dart is actually pretty good marketing and, is one of the least tainted names. Like, I think Neon could actually do well again, but Conquest, I don't know if that would. Because I think that was the small one, right? I think, I mean, I guess for current times, Conquest would be a very time-appropriate name for a car, but I think Neon or Dart would probably be a better way to go. Let me see. Danny says, my generation, even though I'm at the end of Gen Z, literally the last 2 years of it. Nice. Well, yeah, it's the Gen Z, I think there's a lot of promise there. I'm excited to see what they do as they become more influential in the future too. And Raphael says, I forgot my spot or a sound, a charger with that amazing supercharger line on my way to get sushi. I had to blow and wave at him. That's awesome. Yeah, those superchargers are always so fun to hear for sure. And let me see. Sick Trace is asking thoughts on the new 8.5 Golf R. I reviewed it last year. Definitely check out my video on that and have all my thoughts in there. But overall, I really like it. I think, yeah, I would just go GTI because I think GTI is good enough and fast enough unless you need all-wheel drive. For me, I think Golf R is a law of diminishing returns. I think, it's not that much better than a GTI experience-wise unless you need the all-wheel drive. But if you don't need it, I think GTI is pretty good. For me, it's like either GTI or just go up to a lightly used Audi RS3 if you want all-wheel drive and something really special. But Lancelot says that $1 million Lexus was on VinWiki's car show thing with Hoovy and Tavares. After that, I'm not sure. Gotcha. Well, hopefully it's still out there kicking somewhere. And Mr. 705 says, when the Doug score part of the video comes up is when I skip to the next video. Interesting insight. Because that's like the biggest fear of a YouTuber is what gets people to click away. And those are the things are like you absolutely never want to do. So if that's the thing you don't like, then maybe that's, it's just anecdotal, but that maybe there's more people out there that feel the same way. I'd be very curious to see where the drop-off rates are for his videos, but maybe a good reason to steer clear of the scores. I don't know. But Michelle says, were you able to do any more digging on the Toyota UA80 issues discussed in the last stream? Unfortunately not. Had a bunch of stuff going on there the rest of this week, and like stuff like the Celica popped up. So there was a bunch of other things. And this next week I'm going to be pretty slammed. So I'm not going to get to it anytime soon, but I'm hoping to get to it and cover that more because I do want to get to the bottom of that and kind of make up my mind as far as where it ranks as far as is it a super big thing that I need to blast out to the world? Is it something that I can fit in as a later rant and do it down the road or something, or is it something that doesn't need to be covered at all? I don't know. I have to see, but it sounds important, so I definitely want to look into it more, but just have not had the time. And I've been thinking about it all week and trying to I just been too busy, unfortunately. But I will let you know once I've got some more thoughts on that. And Fook says, I am a new 86 with the yellow TRD special. I saw a new 86 with a yellow TRD special edition today, and it looks so good. Yeah, that body kit they have, the Aero kit, is actually cool. And the fun thing is they actually offer that Aero kit now, even not on the Yuzu edition. You can get it on a regular GR86 premium. Which is cool if you don't need the yellow. And it's a nice body kit for sure. I'm hoping to get a GR86 this year as a press car. And I hope it's that one with that body kit because I want to try out that exhaust too because I got the quad exhaust. And I haven't had one with the aftermarket or the accessory exhaust yet because I'm curious if it's droney or not. I'm thinking it will be, but I just hope I can try it out here. We'll see. And Sick Trade says, in Canada, the Golf R, they're like 50 to 59, which makes it more attractive, maybe to me at least. I'm looking for a new car that can do year-round driving. Oh yeah, if you're in Canada, I think for Canadians especially, Golf R makes more sense, and especially if it's priced pretty well. If you're fairly close to US pricing, then maybe it could make some more sense. Because yeah, everything is just different pricing wise, so it's hard to say, rank stuff without actually looking up all the pricing in Canada, which I unfortunately don't have the time to, stay abreast of that stuff as much as I'd like to. But yeah, if you need the all-weather capability, then Golf R is great for that. And TI Bent VT says scores are overrated. Everyone values things differently. Just tell me the things I need to know. That's always been kind of my take on it as well. I agree. But Vishal says now that the 1.5 CVT is gone for the regular Civic, an Auto SI would be a way to bring that combo back. Is it gone? I thought so. Regular Civic. If you're talking, so wait, 1.5, are you talking 1.5T or 1.5? If you're talking to the 1.5T, isn't that what they're having in the Touring still? And in, yeah, or did they make a change that I missed maybe? I don't know. I'll have to look into that. And feel free to give follow up here too if I missed something. But I thought you could still get it in the Touring. I thought it was even in, isn't there a Sport with a 1.5T? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm imagining things. I thought for sure, at least, that there was a Touring Civic that had the 1.5T still. Anyway, Dave says, I think they should do a Civic Si with a manual hybrid similar to the CRZ. I wish they could. They don't use that powertrain anymore. And the reason why you can't do it is because that hybrid system in the Hondas is set up where the gas engine is just a generator. You have electric motors at the wheels, and unless you are doing highway speeds, the engine is never connected to the wheels. And so because of that, the car needs to dole out power and bring up revs whenever it needs juice for the batteries. And it's not related to the speed you're doing or what you're doing driving wise. And so that's the problem. And this is also why Prelude, for example, it has that Sport Plus mode, but it only lets you do manual shifting for like, I don't know, a few seconds or a few shifts, and then it cuts you off because it needs to, again, make sure that it's giving you or getting enough juice from the engine to keep the car running and driving. So if you were manually shifting that and you had complete freedom to, sit at 2,000 RPMs forever or sit at 5,000 RPMs forever, you would be overproducing or you'd be underproducing for the battery's needs. And the car, it'd be, you can't realistically tell the car or have the car tell you like, hey, we need you to hit 3,000 RPMs now so that we have enough electric juice for the battery, and hope that the people actually do what the car is telling them to do. That just doesn't work, so that's the problem with so unless Honda is a new hybrid system, there's no way that that's going to happen just because it's just actually impossible, again, unless magically people are okay being told what to do in their car. Certainly, maybe in Japan, not here. So I think that's kind of the biggest problem. But yeah, and B. Mitchell's not a fan of Panda Black Plastic. And Sark says, hey, Matt, I hope you're doing well. I got the WRX TS tune from Demand. OTS tune making 310 wheel horsepower and 355 wheel torque with just a Cobb intake filter upgrade. Wakes the car up so much. I bet. I still would like to, because everyone swears by the VB WRX, like a tuned one, being like super awesome. And I really need to try one out. I haven't had anyone offer me one nearby, but I'm hoping to try that out someday because it seems like a ton of people. It's like the whole thing holding up the WRX enthusiast community now is like the fact that you can get so much power from a simple tune. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I'm glad it's been good for you, and hopefully it's not too expensive. I'm not sure what they charge for that kind of stuff anymore, but if it's a minimal charge and you get a nice discount on a WRX, it could be a nice boost. I mean, obviously, the warranty is the iffy thing. But if you're okay not having a warranty, or we can maybe reverse it or whatever, that's great. That's awesome. And Mr. Zona 5 says that Delivered is hiring. You'd be great at it. I don't know, or Delived. I don't know what that is. I don't think. But I'll have to look that up. I appreciate it. I'll write that one down here too. See if I can look into that a little bit more. And let me see. So Lancelot says a kid walks up to his dad and asks, "Dad, can you tell me what an eclipse is?" The dad responds, "No, son." Nice. That's a good one. Thanks for the joke, Lancelot. And Michelle says, agreed. My car only has 54,000 miles on it, so a ton of life left in it. I feel confident I can get another 100,000 out of it comfortably. Got to see how it goes with gas prices. At least it's efficient. Yeah, you got that on your side for sure. And yeah, 54,000, yeah, you're right. A lot of life left. You shouldn't worry. And let me see. Bill says, what's the highest mileage you've gotten out of a set of tires? Well, unfortunately, I don't keep cars long enough to usually need to replace tires. The longest one actually was the Legacy GT way back when. And in that, I had the Sumitomo HTRZ3s. I went through 2 sets of those. I think the most I ever got, if my memory is correct, was I think about 35,000 miles out of those. That was the Sumitomo HTRZ3 back then, which was a summer tire. That's about it. Usually you're not going to get more than 30,000 out of a tire unless it's like a more like low grip all season, at least in my experience. But that's been about the best because the Bullet, the tires needed to be new. They're around 20,000 mark. Mach-E, needed the new tires, and that was really bad. That was like the worst. That was like 10,000 miles. It was ridiculous, crazy. But anyway, yeah, and trying to think of other things. Yeah, BRZ. It was on the original tires when I traded that in. That was at. That was probably pretty close because that was at. How many miles did I have on the BRZ? Was it? I think it was 33,000. I think so. Before it was gone. Yeah, so that was actually probably pretty close to being up there, and that was the Michelin Primacy all season. So, so that was another, pretty. That's kind of around, I think, the average for me for tires. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Because the Mustangs, all the other Mustangs, I would always keep the miles down on the tires because I'd always put on winters whenever they were actual daily drivers. So that's I think that's about the most I've gotten. Howie says, I know 50's kind of crazy for a Golf R, but car prices on all cars are nuts nowadays. At least the Golf R tends to hold its resale value pretty well. True, and that's certainly an important component. If you're not losing a lot of value there, then it makes sense to spend that premium sometimes. And I see everyone's weighing in on what they are if they're not an actual human. I see WK says they're a dog, and Lance wants a Wolverine, and a robotic Wolverine. And let me see. Also, WK Beats says, have you seen the channel World According to Briggs? He does ranked videos for geography. You could do those for cars and car history. I loved ranking videos. That's a fun idea. I haven't heard of that. I'll have to check it out. I appreciate the suggestion. Let me see. B. Mitchell says, oh, gee, twisting a key is old. My 47 International has an ignition switch and a push button on the floor by the gas pedal for the starter. That's fun. I remember, a lot of those classics that have the floor ignition, which, I'm sure most people don't even know that was a thing, but that was like the norm until, when was it, B. Mitchell? You'll know better than I will, but I feel like the floor ignition didn't go away until maybe like late 40s. Maybe it was a little bit before that. I don't know. I know like everything from the 30s pretty much had the floor. I mean, because you usually you still had the key, and then you hit the floor starter. I feel like that went away by the 50s. I could be wrong. But anyway, you can correct me here once I get to the bottom of the comments here. But let me see here. And we are over time, so I'll just do the last few here, and we're almost to the end here. And we'll sign off. But B. Mitchell also says the Lincoln Bronco is being talked about as a domestic Mercedes G-Wagon, loaded up with trinkets and charged double the MSRP, maybe even put a Coyote V8 in it. Interesting. Even with that angle, though, I don't know if I see it. I don't know if it would go over, because I feel like people who want that kind of thing, I mean, I guess there's, potential to load up a Bronco, and maybe that's not high enough for some people, but I just don't see it. I think it's very clear. Like, you have Bronco buyers and Wrangler buyers, but they're one group. I think if you want to have a mid-grade between Wrangler and Bronco and G-Wagon, there's Defender. And trying to out-Defender the Defender is going to be hard. I mean, especially with Ford's recalls, they'll probably actually be worse as recalls than Land Rover, believe it or not. So I mean, I think like Land Rover is kind of the answer there if you're going to be in that kind of a price bracket. I mean, I guess there's enough volume and demand there to maybe go around for others because I don't know about you guys, but I see Defenders everywhere around here. Like I see at least 3 Defenders a day. Like I can't go, 10 minutes to the grocery store without seeing at least like a couple of Defenders. It's not quite as ubiquitous as Crosstreks around here, but it's approaching that, especially in these like nicer neighborhoods of Pittsburgh here. It's like the Defender is everywhere, which also kind of gives me peace of mind about the reliability. Because surely if Defenders were as much of a basket case as the internet makes them seem like they are, all of these people would be really mad and they would not have Defenders, very long. But like, I just see so many Defenders around here. Like, I must have counted probably 5 today, just driving around. And I didn't even do that much driving today. So they're, I think that's kind of the answer. I mean, but who knows? I guess there could always be a competitor to take people away, maybe. And it's talking about for the next gen Bronco and Ranger platform. Interesting. Well, we'll see what happens, I guess. And Aaron says that a Bronco pickup was in the works but canceled at launch. Yeah, and I mean that sounds like a good idea, but then you see Gladiator struggling, and it's like, okay, well, if Gladiator can't succeed, then good luck to Bronco. That wouldn't work, I guess. It's one of those things that should have worked. And just I don't know why I just didn't connect with people. Excuse me. And let me see. And B. Mitchell says, and no, you don't get it. Not being a truck guy, a luxury brand pickups don't sell. GMC is this upmarket branding that works. That market is going for the fake. I'm just one of y'all. Look, interesting. I mean, I can see that. I think the GMC is, bringing up GMC, I think they are an example that does have potential. And I mean, because the reason, like I even sat through, I think it was last year, GMC, when I did one of their events, they were telling us how like Denali is hugely popular. Like that, I can't remember. I don't know the exact number, so I'm not going to try and quote them, but like they have huge demand for Denali. Like that is the number one seller, I think, as far as trims goes. For something, maybe not for this year, but for something else, like everyone wants Denali. And like, I think that shows there's an appetite. I mean, but the fact that like they're seeing the biggest growth is the Denali sub brand. It's like, and actually, if you look at across like the entire industry, like Denali has some of the best numbers for sub brands. Like they make a lot of other companies really jealous with just how well Denali does. To me, I don't know if that's the limit. Clearly, like if people are writing blank checks for Denali's and the fact is like Denali's not enough. And so that's why we've now seen, was it Denali Plus or whatever they call Denali Ultimate. Denali Ultimate is now like, they had to do another thing above Denali because people are like, I want to spend more money on my truck. Denali is not enough. They're like, okay, well, let's give you Denali Ultimate. And I don't know if that's going to be enough. And that's why it's worth at least trying, even if they phone it in, like, whether it's Cadillac or Lincoln or somebody, I don't know. Especially, I feel like there is certainly a lot of people that want to be the I'm one of you guys and like, secretly have this super lavish interior while you're in a Ford F-150. But I think there are also people who do one-upping each other, especially in the truck crowd. Because I mean, that's the whole like lifted truck thing in many ways. It's just that, so I don't know. I think the culture there could support luxury trucks, but maybe I'm in the minority there. Clearly, car companies agree with you, B. Mitchell, because they haven't done it yet. But I don't know. I think there's at least it's worth a shot, I think. I don't know. But WK also says Chevy HHR pickup was ahead of its time. So you maybe mean the SSR, because the HHR only came as a panel van and then the regular PT Cruiser thing. Yeah, the SSR, I think that's what it was called, right? Yeah, the convertible Chevy truck thing. I think it could have been ahead of its time for sure. Yeah, one of those weird things where Chevy has a crystal ball, but the timing's all wrong. But anyway, B. Mitchell said Ford is way done with Rivian, and they were looking at using Rivian architecture for Lincoln. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know when they had sold off. I knew they kind of weren't connected or anything, but I just didn't know how removed they were at this point. So that's good to know. And Jordan says, I think USA needs compliance vehicles, crash test approved, and 15 grand would expand people's access to jobs. I work within 3 miles of our home just in case Chad needs the Fusion and I have to walk. Crazy. But yeah, I think something cheap like that would certainly be definitely a great thing if we could get there. I think it's tough to do, but I'd love to see someone try for sure. But I mean, Mirage was close to that and wasn't able to be justified to stick around any longer. Jordan, thank you also for a super chat here. He says Ford could use a Toyota Crown type vehicle, a hybrid. Yeah, I think something like that would go over well. It sounds like Ford may be considering bringing back sedans. We'll see if they actually do it or not. But I hope that's we get something like that eventually. Let me see. Corvette says it's so fast too with the iX. His dad has it's got 516 horsepower, 564 pound-feet of torque. We're going back to the BMW dealership sometime this week so they can show us how everything works. Nice. Well, that's good. They're going to walk you through all that, and yeah, they're quick, I'm sure. And Michelle says was watching a recent Car Wizard vid of a Dodge Dart that came to the shop. It was in pretty good shape and well maintained. He said if they're taken care of, they do last, but majority of them weren't. Yes, and that's again same problem that Hyundai and Kia have, and even Mitsubishi. They're good cars if you maintain them, but they're often sold to people at heavy discounts, and just people who aren't going to be treating them like people who buy Hondas and Toyotas treat those vehicles. And that's part of the problem. Is it's just it's not even the cars. You can make the cars really good, but if people skip oil changes, they're gonna fall apart and have issues. So I think there's a lot of that. And Dodge Star as well. I've seen, in the Mileage Impossible Facebook page that I follow, there's been multiple darts that are 200, 300,000 miles. They last. Same with Chrysler 200, all these other vehicles that have largely disappeared off the roads. But they've disappeared off the roads largely because people treat them as disposable cars. And so they're not going to, invest in them and be meticulous with maintenance and keep up on all that stuff. So I think that's sadly the fate of some of those more budget kind of brands and vehicles. And Dave says, wasn't the Conquest a rebadged Starion? Oh, maybe it was. Maybe I got that mixed up. So if that's the case, then you're talking about a rear-wheel drive, like super competitor at the time. So Dodge doing something like that. They've talked about doing a new, there was a few years back where they were talking about a Miata competitor, and they wanted like a $30,000 sports car. Clearly, I think those days are gone, and they're not going to do that. But I think they've been open to that, but I just don't know if they see the volumes, versus a regular sedan where I think they could do a lot better. Vishal says the refresh got rid of the 1.5T in favor of the 2.0 hybrids. Oh, okay. So it's the same as Accord. Gotcha. Yeah, I guess I thought there was still a choice, but I'm just misremembering because now I remember. Yeah, you're right. It's all just the same deal there. So yeah. So I guess maybe that would make it a harder case to justify the 1.5T. Yeah, going forward here. I guess we'll see what Integra does. I think that could be the real nail in the coffin. If Integra goes to hybrid and goes hybrid exclusive, which I could foresee happening, then that could kind of put the 1.5T, especially because of how problematic the 1.5T is turning out to be. If they quietly kind of ride that out into the sunset and put it to pasture, I think then in that case, I could see Civic Si finally going to a detuned 2.0T. That could be the only path forward that I could see. But even the 2.0T doesn't really have a whole lot of use cases anymore because RDX isn't sticking around. You don't have, I guess, ADX actually, never mind, because ADX has the 1.5T. So ADX will be the savior for that motor. So disregard. We'll move on. Anyway, I see. He says, it's just non-turbo 2.0 or the hybrid for the Civics. Yeah. LX and Sport are the non-turbo, and Sport hybrid are the hybrid. Yeah, you're right. Sark says, if I'm ever in Pittsburgh, you'll have to drive it. Yes, the warranty is definitely an iffy thing that you have to take in your hands, unfortunately, especially without the STI, having the STI trans. Yeah. I think it'd be nice. And this is why, as nice as the mods are, it's just, it'd be nice to see a proper STI so that you could have everything be properly supported and not have to dump a ton of money into that, because they're not far off. Like, that they can do that same tune, throw the STI trans into the center diff controller, and you're set. It's not. Yeah, you guys know my thoughts on Subaru. I won't go down that path, especially since we're over time here. But Vishal says, delivered is the car buying business. Oh, yeah, that we talked about. Gotcha. Yeah, sorry, I forgot. Because I think it was spelled differently for the prior comments. I thought it was something different. But yeah, so they're hiring people to do car deals, not on camera, from home, and still do videos of your own when you have the time. Oh, okay, I see. Interesting. I mean, negotiating car deals is very stressful, but maybe even just temporarily, just, to try and get me back on my feet here financially, that could be a nice boost. Interesting. I didn't know they were, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to fix the spelling of my note here now, because I didn't write it down correctly the last time. So yeah, it's all these things where they just like drop letters is very confusing for me. Maybe that's like me being old now, that it's kind of weird to drop letters, but okay. Deliver it. I got it, I think. But yeah, thank you. I didn't know they were hiring, so I'll have to look into that and see what it's looking like as far as money goes there. Let me see. Kyle says, "Hey Matt, do you like going to classic car shows? You should consider coming to Cleveland for the Piston Power show. It'll be the last one. Would make for good content." I like going to classic car shows for myself. Unfortunately, car show videos to me, or they've never really done great for me. I used to do every week when I would go to Cars and Coffee back in the day. I would do like a whole walkthrough of all the cars there, and I'd find a song to have as background beat, and it was a nice like highly edited kind of thing that was fun to do. And now, I mean, these days I'd probably just do it as a vlog, and I wouldn't bother with all the edits and stuff. But just that stuff, at least for me, doesn't perform. I mean, it's been a long time since I tried it, so maybe it's worth another try. It's just also hard for me to get to car shows these days. The weekends I always try and reserve for family stuff because I'm so busy, during the week, and don't have time to, hang around much, during the weekdays. But, during the weekends, I try and do more stuff with the family. And we went to one car show with my daughter, but we had like a C6 Corvette that was straight pipe that like red line revved like right next to her at the one Cars and Coffee that we went to, and like that freaked her out, and I think she's kind of scared to go back. We're gonna try and work on that. And we went to the Vintage Grand Prix, the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix, twice. The first time we showed up and we were like applying sunscreen, and she accidentally like got it from her fingers and like rubbed her eye, and like her eyes were like burning, and she was in misery, so we just had to like clean out her eyes and just go home. So like we literally showed up, turned around and went right back. It's the most crushing thing, but that's dad life. And then one other year we went to the Vintage Grand Prix, we got there late, and we like were there for like an hour or something, but that's at least like a safer show, because you don't have random tuners like trying to show off and stuff there. So we might try and make the Vintage Grand Prix again this year. And that there's so much to cover there too. So that would be fun to cover, but yeah, it's just for me, I can't usually do a good walkthrough of those, because again, we're limited with having a 4-year-old now. She'll be 5 soon, but it's if I was on my own and I can take my time and stuff, but I feel too bad saying see you later to the family for the day and going off and being selfish and doing something just for me, which I know everyone's different, but for me, it's hard for me to do. So I would like to do car shows at some point. I hope that someday, my daughter will be better with that, or whenever she's older and she's got her friends and she's hanging out with them, stuff like that, I can, go run off on my own and do something. But yeah, for now, not something I'll probably be able to do, for a little bit here. But B. Mitchell said GM, Pontiac, and Buick still use the floor push button starter until at least 1957. Interesting. Okay, cool. And Michelle says, I think Lincoln's too classy and luxury vibe to do a G-Wagon or even Defender competitor. Yeah, I agree. And B. Mitchell said the Defenders you see are probably leased, not bought. Probably. Yeah, because it's so hard because they all look the same, so it's hard to say which ones are out of the lease period and which ones aren't. That's a good point. But because now they've been around since the 2020 model year, I think. So there's a lot of them out there, and I can't envision them all being leases, but yeah, for that income bracket, most of them probably are. So I guess, but I mean, I've even heard a lot of people saying like they're terrible to even lease because like they don't even hold together for 3 years. It's like the common stuff out there is like, oh, it's just terrible, from start to finish and all that. So I think that's kind of, even if there are leases, I still, to me, if you can hold it together for 3 years without issue, that seems these days sadly to even be an accomplishment. And that would be better than I think what the public perception of Land Rover is, that they don't hold up that long. And I think that these ones out there show that they do. And even if like now they've been out for 5 or 6 years, you would think that if they did have a horrible reputation or people did research, maybe they just don't. You would see people being like, oh, well, I could lease this, but I'm not even sure it's going to do that. So I'm going to lease something else instead. And I am starting to see a slight increase in Lexus GXs around here. So there might be a little bit of that kind of bleeding off, which is another one I forgot to mention. But that's another one. Yeah, if you're in Defender territory, you have GX, which is legitimately capable off-road and all that too. And is probably a better bet. Again, especially if you're one of those people who is going to buy and hold, you're going to go for a GX for resale. You're going to go for it for reliability, before you go for a Lincoln thing anyway. But all right, we're just about at the end here, I think. So Michelle says, from what I've heard, Defenders thus far aren't having any crazy issues. Doug had a 2020, he put 50,000 miles on it in a year, and the only thing that happened was the sunroof got stuck closed. Interesting. Yeah, I've heard there's a little bit of fit and finish stuff sometimes in some of them, but other than that, and that mostly might even just be early teething stuff. Hopefully they've gotten better. Thankfully, at least press cars goes, they've all been flawless, aside from the one I just had, a month ago, had the CarPlay kind of freeze up a little bit sometimes, but other than that, like, it's been fine. And that's an accomplishment on its own, because I've had some of the Stellantis stuff that's given me check engine lights and glitches and stuff, and Land Rover hasn't done any of that, at least. And Aaron here, I think with the last comment here of the night here, he says, agreed, it should have replaced the Ranger, as far as maybe a truck, instead of like a Bronco truck kind of thing. But I think Ranger, I think that regular kind of midsize thing is very important. And I think, Ranger sells pretty well. So I feel like there could be room for an actual, I guess you got Ranger Raptor, so maybe that kind of eats into a Bronco truck's appeal. And I'm hoping actually to do a Ranger Raptor review finally here fairly soon, because that's been one that's evaded me for a long time. Ford hasn't had any in the press fleets around here, but I'm hoping to actually make a Ranger Raptor review happen, because I've heard such great things about it, and it's priced really well for what it is. So I'm hoping to do one of those here sooner or later. But anyway, I think we have caught up here. So thank you all so much for hanging out here tonight. I hope you guys have a safe, happy, healthy, happy week here. Just hope for peace in the world here. Not holding my breath, but I hope that things improve. But nonetheless, hope you guys have a good week here yourselves. And like I said, I will not be doing one on Wednesday. If you missed that in the beginning of the live, I won't be able to do a Wednesday live this week, but I will be doing one again this coming Sunday. So stay tuned for that, and more good content here this week as well. But anyway, thank you all so much for hanging out here. Thank you all so much, especially those of you who did the super chats tonight. I really much appreciate that as well. But anyway, have a great one. Take care.